It has been 17 long years. I never imagined it would take a lifetime just to return to Korean soil. Before me, turns rested in solemn silence. Yu Ho-jong, Jin Soo-yeep, staring at the cold vases. The words finally escaped my lips. Father, mother. It has been far too long. I once asked myself a dark question in the quiet of the night. What is the true value of a single human life? Rewind the clock to 17 years ago, 10:30 p.m., the Gulf of Aden. A luxury cruise was about to turn into a living hell. Panic consumed me. The storm raged, tearing the world apart, growing more violent by the second. I looked for my parents, but they were gone. Mom, Dad, I screamed until my throat bled, fighting the crushing currents. Then, amidst the chaos, I saw them, two shapes drifting in the abyss. I swam closer, my heart pounding against my ribs. It was Mother. But as the lightning flashed, the truth shattered me. Bullet holes. Her body was riddled with wounds. I froze, my mind unable to process the nightmare before me. Wake up, please. I shook her, desperate for a reaction. But the ocean showed no mercy. A massive wave crashed down, dragging me into the suffocating depths. My lungs burned. Instinct took over. I had to surface immediately, or I would die here in the dark. I broke the surface, gasping for air. But as I opened my eyes, I saw a graveyard beneath the ship. The horror mounted with every heartbeat. My secretary, the head chef, the captain, even the bodyguards, all of them executed. And then, the cruelest sight of all drifted nearby. The realization struck me like a physical blow. My parents sinking further into the endless dark. I was ready to let go, but a hand grabbed me. Tae-ha, are you hurt? An old man's voice cut through the storm. Grandfather, tears blurred my vision. He was alive. I wasn't alone. Can you move, child? He asked, his grip like iron. Grandfather Siak-ho gritted his teeth against the waves. It seems the heavens haven't completely forsaken us yet. But father, mother, they are down there, I cried. I know, he replied, his voice trembling with suppressed grief. But there is nothing we can do for them now. Listen to me, Tae-ha. Burn these words into your soul. You must survive. You must return and claim your birthright, the Cheon-u Group. He pressed a pen into my shaking hand. Take this to Lawyer Kim. Do not lose it. He will know exactly what to do. Trust no one, he commanded, his eyes burning with intensity. Return to Korea immediately. Find the lawyer. Please, Grandpa, save them, I begged, ignoring the inheritance. We can't leave Mom and Dad. Ignoring my pleas, he began to remove his life vest. Confusion washed over me. Grandfather, what are you doing? He forced the vest onto me, strapping it tight. They were dead before the water touched them. Tae-ha, assassinated. He pulled the cord, inflating the vest around me. Survive. At all costs. With a final, heartbreaking shove, he pushed me away just as a titan of a wave rose to swallow us. Lightning tore the sky one last time. Then silence. The chaos faded into an agonizing, peaceful silence. I drifted, but a cargo ship, and looking down from the deck, a silhouette with a hidden smile, bathed in the blinding light. Boss, you have to see this, one shouted. Italian. I recognized the sharp cadence of the language immediately. The guard, someone, but my heavily armed. She stood. He probably. I stared. That won't be. I am shipwreck. She burst. Her expression dark. My Tae-ha plays. He argues that, annoyed by his audacity, Regina asks if he is seriously talking about that Cheon-u Group. A quick background check confirms it. They are dealing with the undisputed titan of South Korean conglomerates. And intrigued, while they dig for suddenly, a subordinate speaks up. He found a breaking news report from Korea. A sharp, predatory smile cuts across Regina's face. This just got fascinating. But Tae-ha remembered it is what the caller states. They are calling from abroad and will only communicate in English, verifying if the man on the other end is indeed Lawyer Kim. Regina cuts to the chase. Based on the photo she just sent, the lawyer must realize she holds the group's precious heir. She asks a simple question. Should she send him back to Korea? However, the voice on the other end turns cold, questioning exactly what she implies by that offer. She drops her price, $10 million. The exchange will happen in the neutral territory of the Panama Canal. but the lawyer claims he is far too busy for negotiations. He sets his drink down, grabs a microphone, and makes a chilling counteroffer. $1 million. He spits out a curse, cementing the price. $1 million. Not for the boy's life, but for his end. Amidst the thump of party music and laughter, the man delivers the death sentence. He will pay the $1 million if she kills Tae-ha right now. He demands video proof within 5 minutes to transfer the reward. Regina doesn't flinch at the violence, only the logistics. She asks what guarantee she has that he will pay after the deed is done. With an audience watching, the lawyer scoffs. He assures her that a paltry sum like $1 million requires only 3 taps on his phone to transfer. And if she refuses, Kim threatens to leak to the international press that her organization was behind the recent terrorist attacks. Ending the call, he turns to his superior with a smug grin. There's no need to worry. He has already hired mercenaries nearby to clean up any loose ends. With the Heir gone, the entire Cheon-u Group now belongs solely to them. Tae-ha stands frozen, his soul crushed by the revelation. The man he trusted wants him dead in 5 minutes. Fear, cold and sharp, pierces his heart. Regina shrugs, her demeanor shifting instantly. That is just how the world works. Since the ransom is off the table, her reason for keeping him breathing has evaporated. Terrified, Tae-ha falls to his knees, begging them to spare his life. But Regina shakes her head. He is no longer a chaebol heir. He is a liability. Back home, they are likely already preparing his funeral. She asks if he understands what that means. In her world, killing for assets and achievements is just another Tuesday. Horror consumes him. He screams out, unable to comprehend why his own uncles and relatives would plot to slaughter his entire family. The guards whisper among themselves, noting that the boss won't kill him yet. She is just enjoying the sport of breaking him psychologically. Tae-ha trembles violently. He survived the unforgiving sea only to be executed by strangers in a foreign land. He wonders what the Cheon-u name really means. Was a title worth the blood of his parents and grandfather? Suddenly, the door bursts open. A subordinate rushes in. They are under attack. 3 patrol ships and a heavily armed military helicopter have them surrounded. Regina asks if it is Interpol, but the man shakes his head. These forces are ignoring all radio transmissions. Regina frowns. This doesn't make sense. Who would be insane enough to launch a full-scale assault like this? Her eyes lock onto the child. The Koreans must have sent a hit squad to finish the job. But then Tae-ha slams the pen into his own hand. Blood sprays, confusing everyone. Through gritted teeth, Tae-ha declares that the Cheon-u Group will never give her the money. Furthermore, she gains absolutely nothing by killing him for people who clearly plan to wipe her out too. The leader of the Salerno family trade looks stunned by the boy's resolve. Tae-ha looks up, eyes burning, and begs to join them. He pledges eternal loyalty if they help him exact his revenge. The woman pauses, intrigued. How did this child recognize the Salerno family insignia? A manic laughter erupts from her throat. Regina turns to Matteo with wild excitement. Get ready, because the real show is about to begin. Before leaving, she leans in close. Does the boy understand the weight of his vow? Does he truly desire the power of revenge, even if it means bathing his hands in blood? Tae-ha recalls his grandfather's final command, no matter the means. He must inherit Cheon-u at all costs. Eyes hard as steel, the protagonist simply nods. Regina smiles like a predator. Good, she whispers. Barking dogs rarely bite. Let's see your fangs. Despite the madness surrounding him, a spark of intrigue ignited within his soul. The unhinged woman shattered the silence, kicking the door wide open. She commanded them to follow, declaring a cruel fate. From this moment on, the boy's very soul belonged to the Salerno family. He existed solely to live and die for their cause. Watch closely, she hissed. This is your future. Tae-ha stood frozen, his eyes wide as he witnessed the path of blood laid out before him. 17 long years vanished into the void. Now, he finally stepped back onto Korean soil. Whispering to the spirits of his mother and father, he vowed that his path of vengeance began now, begging them to watch over him. But his senses suddenly screamed a warning. Something was wrong. In a heartbeat, he spun around, eyes locking onto the danger behind him. Reflexes honed by hell took over. He leaped aside just as a hail of bullets tore through the space where he had stood. A death squad had arrived, unloading their magazines directly at Tae-ha. As armed men poured out of black vehicles, a voice dripped with arrogance. "Do these insects even know how to aim?" The security manager of the Cheon-u Group barked orders to find the senior administrative director. He scoffed, "I don't know who this fool is, but he must be insane to think he can kidnap a Cheon-u executive and live." "Manager," one of the subordinates shouted. "We located the target vehicle." The manager narrowed his eyes, "Open the trunk, but be careful. The director is still inside, and he better be alive." But the moment they moved to secure the hostage, the trap sprang. Boom! A massive explosion engulfed the scene in roaring flames. "The audacity to plant a bomb here," the manager roared in fury. But his rage turned to terror as heads began to roll literally. Before he could even process the carnage, half his squad was decapitated. By the time he turned around, the rest were already dead. Tae-ha had slaughtered them all in the blink of an eye. The only evidence of the manager's resistance was a shallow cut on his waist. Trembling, the manager realized his protective vest was the only thing keeping his guts inside. Desperate, the bald man lunged at the protagonist, screaming, "You little insect." But Tae-ha's gaze was colder than ice. "Don't think you're the only one with something to say." In a flash, the atmosphere shifted. Slash! Tae-ha landed a devastating strike on the man's back. The force was absolute, cleaving the manager in two with terrifying precision. As his life faded, the man's mind shattered. What was that? He could not comprehend how a human being could possess such monstrous power. "Who is this monster?" were his final thoughts. Yet, Tae-ha looked down at the corpse with nothing but cold dissatisfaction. He meticulously wiped the blood from his daggers and turned away. Walking calmly toward the luxury car, he retrieved a bag waiting in the back seat. He approached the trunk where the trembling hostage lay. Wincing in pain, the director begged for mercy. "Please, let me go. I was only following orders." This was Kim, the former lawyer the Snake who had ordered Tae-ha's death years ago. "I had no reason to kill the chairman," he stammered, desperate to spin a new lie. Tae-ha ignored the pleas. He unzipped the bag and dumped piles of cash directly onto the terrified man. "Here, this is the 1,000,000 won. That money, it never made it to me back then." The director stared at the bills in horror as the memory of that fateful day came rushing back. The protagonist pulled a lighter from his coat, the flame flickering in his eyes. "Thanks to the fact that I died that day, I was reborn." He flicked the lighter into the trunk. Whoosh! Flames erupted instantly, engulfing Kim as he screamed in agony, burning alive. Tae-ha watched the inferno with eyes devoid of emotion, cold, detached, merciless. He calmly lit a cigar from the embers. In the silence of his mind, he called out to his parents and grandfather, "I am sorry it took so long. Do not worry anymore. Find your peace. From this day forward, I will carry all your pain." After some time passed, in the heart of the city, a modern fortress towered above the rest. The protagonist moved with lethal purpose, a predator entering the lion's den. "Hey, where do you think you're going?" Guards shouted, raising their weapons to gun him down. Slash! Before they could pull the triggers, the madman silenced them both. Two bodies hit the floor, but Tae-ha did not even break his stride. He strolled through the blood-stained hall as if taking a walk in the park. Witnessing the slaughter, a remaining guard collapsed to the floor, paralyzed by pure terror. Who sent you?" the guard stammered. "We are the Cheon-u Group. You think you will be safe after doing this?" Tae-ha kept your main, but in the kidnapping behind the Tae-ha taught the ropes. The old man scrambled up and ran after Tae-ha, handing the weapon back. Thank you, they cried as they fled into the night. "Get back!" The heavy-set guard glared at the intruder. "Who the hell are you? Are you part of the family?" Tae-ha slowly, the man he knew. The protagonist noted that in the shadows of the city, the forgotten souls of society sat huddled on the stairs, homeless and hopeless. The heat was suffocating. Even the cicadas had dropped dead, their silence amplifying the desolation. Suddenly, a figure moved through the stillness with urgency. As he walked, Tae-han realized a cigar would attract unwanted stares. He wondered if he should blend in and try some local Korean cigarettes instead. The avenue was bustling with life. He muttered that he had finally returned to Korea, and on the surface, everything appeared deceptively normal. But beneath the veneer, he noticed his country was spiraling into madness, with predatory ads for loans and insurance plaguing every corner. On a screen, a politician delivered a fiery speech, vowing to use his absolute power to eradicate the epidemic of crime. He proclaimed that from this day forward, war was officially declared. However, his grand declaration was cut short. The speech ended in chaos as a gun was leveled at his head. History was repeating itself. Back in 1990, a president was assassinated during a similar crusade against organized crime. Since that bloody day, no one dared to challenge the syndicates. The country had transformed into a hellscape consumed by violence and ruled by dirty money. Tae-ha walked these corrupted streets, lost in deep contemplation. The Cheon-u Group had seized control, allying with criminal organizations to bribe the media and ruthlessly crush any competition. They poured money into sports and entertainment, distracting the masses so effectively that even a dog could run for office without scrutiny. Yet, the brainwashed public continued to praise the Cheon-u Group as a benevolent company. Tae-ha slipped quietly into a convenience store. The clerk greeted him mechanically. At the exact same moment, Tae-ha and another man ordered the exact same pack of cigarettes. They locked eyes, staring in confusion. How could such a coincidence happen? Irritated, the protagonist decided to shift his choice to avoid the hassle. But their minds were perfectly synced. They both requested a pack of plus at the exact same second. Once again, suspicion flared between them. The clerk awkwardly broke the tension, apologizing that unfortunately, only one pack remained. Tae-ha sighed deeply, his annoyance visible. As he turned to leave, he instructed the clerk to give it to the other guy. He claimed he would be fine without it. But as Tae-ha walked away, the stranger's gaze lingered on his back, analyzing him. Moments later, the man found Tae-ha outside. The protagonist politely asked to bum a cigarette, but the man questioned why he didn't just go to another store. Tae-ha explained that it had been a long time since he last stood on Korean soil, and his craving wouldn't wait. The man sighed, giving up on avoiding him. As he handed over a smoke, he scoffed, unable to believe someone actually wanted to inhale that tasteless trash. They began to walk. The man warned that smoking here would attract a fine, suggesting they move to a designated smoking area. As he observed the stranger, Tae-ha admitted a truth to himself. When you have survived in the Mafia for 17 years, a single glance is all it takes to measure a man's worth. He sensed the stranger was dangerous, just as lethal as the monsters he had faced overseas. He wondered if beasts like this were common in Korea now. Deciding to disengage, the protagonist hoped their paths would never cross again. Later, that same stranger arrived at the grim scene where Tae-ha had committed the massacre. Heo Man lit a cigarette, his eyes calmly scanning the carnage and the broken bodies scattered. Across the floor, kneeling down, he inspected the corpses with a professional eye. Every fatal wound was a stab from a blade, precise and short, similar to a sashimi knife. He crushed his cigarette into a pool of fresh blood, pulled out his phone, and dialed his employer. His boss answered with irritation, reminding him that he had forbidden calls at this late hour. Heo Man ignored the tone and asked if there was a meeting scheduled. He advised his boss to cancel the appointment immediately. The assassin who took out Director Kim was likely coming for him next. The boss, sipping wine with arrogant calm, demanded to know what was happening. Heo Man this was no ordinary hitman. It was highly probable the killer knew exactly where the secret meeting would take place. But the boss dismissed the warning, stating that the emergency family gathering was a sacred tradition of the Cheon-u Group. He scoffed at the idea of an intruder, believing the location was known only to family. He reminded Heo Man that he was hired to hunt the rat quietly, not to give orders. Heo Man paused, lost in thought. The clean, surgical wounds on the bodies triggered a memory. He recalled the young man asking for a cigarette. He remembered the scars etching the boy's palms, marks that only come from years of wielding a blade. The realization hit him. He asked his boss if anyone in the family was skilled with knives. The boss laughed dismissively, claiming those soft elites could barely slice an apple. Furthermore, everyone was already present except the children. He offered Heo Man another 100 million to come guard the place personally. Leaving the office, Heo Man agreed to attend the meeting. But his instincts screamed danger, and he ordered security to be tripled immediately. With a scoff, he hands the phone off to a subordinate. He mutters under his breath, complaining that the lunatic gangster actually thinks he can give him orders. Straightening his suit, he composes himself as he strides down the hallway. It is time to get ready for the meeting. Meanwhile, the word it is strictly business. He explains they offered another 100 million won for the job. Only a complete idiot would turn down that kind of cash. The boss, he cuts the Tae-ha steps a crooked first, as Tae-ha, his voice, Hyunmin's twin daggers flash from his back. In a split second, Tae-ha crashes his blades against the enemy's weapon, with sparks flying. Their eyes lock, measuring each other's power levels. Then, the alley explodes into a frenzied exchange of lethal blows. Hyunmin snapped to his shock. His bat is sliced into ribbons mid-air. The gangster freezes, wondering when the blade even moved. What's more, Tae-ha has vanished in the blink of an eye. Panic sets in as Hyunmin realizes the hunter has become the hunted. The position how did they be? Thud. Wiping the batuas, he asks, sheathing his dagger. Tae-ha explains he has his own code. If Hyunmin were truly part of the Cheon-u Group, he would already be a corpse. He offers it, and if his lying in moments later, a car tears down the asphalt, the engine roaring. Tae-ha gritting 30, the adrenaline, don't look. His father screamed. His mother snatched him up, desperate to escape. Suddenly, the entire yacht shuddered violently. Even the assassin stumbled as the floor tilted. She pushed him out the door. Her hands shook as she told her son to find a life vest and jump into the dark water. Ha-young smiled through her tears, telling him he must survive. Behind them, a killer complained, reminding the squad to detonate the bombs only after everyone was dead. A figure, panic breath tearing at his lungs. The first explosion had set the yacht ablaze. Then, a second blast ripped through the hull. The ship groaned, sinking rapidly into the abyss. Back in the shadows of the secret annex in Gangbook, he needed to. The director was Chang shot. He pressed on. Chang had it was confirmed no one else saw a thing. Since they were mere subcontractors, they knew nothing of value. And the police had already buried the incident. Violent, the glass shattered on impact, leaving the table in stunned silence. The old man roared, demanding the location of the Oyung gang. Chang's expression darkened with irritation. Wiping wine from his face, Chang smirked. He claimed the gang knew nothing. Even after he sent their seventh-in-command to extract information. That wasn't enough. In a fit of rage, the old man grabbed a bottle and smashed it ruthlessly over his son's skull. Guho screamed that 24 hours had passed with zero results. No killer, no location, just useless news about a street gang. If the former president and Soo-hyuk hadn't died 17 years ago, he spat. An incompetent fool, like you would never have stepped foot in this room. Blood now mingled with the red wine, completely masking Chang's face in a gruesome crimson mask. Despite the humiliation, Chang remained chillingly calm. He promised to find the target within 12 hours. The family watched, unsettled by the monster and his creator. Later, Juhi whispered to her brother, asking why father was so brutal with the eldest. He was the firstborn, yet treated like a dog. Her brother shook his head. It's not hate, he muttered, trembling slightly. It is pure, unadulterated fear. Chang, meanwhile, simply snapped his fingers for a phone. While wiping the blood from his eyes, Chang scrolled through his screen. He spoke into the device, his voice void of emotion. Where are my men? His assistant confirmed they were in position. A twisted smile formed on Chang's lips. Good. I can't wait to see how grand this entrance will be. Under the night sky, a lone vehicle tore down the highway. Tai gripped the steering wheel, his eyes locked on the Cheon-u headquarters. He had been watching them for a lifetime. His mind flashed back 17 years, to the day he was first accepted into the Seo-no family. Even before his grandfather's body was cold, Guho had swooped in like a vulture, seizing the chairman's seat and stealing every last share. He had exploited the chaos of the failed war on crime. forging dark alliances with filth like the Oyun gang to cement his stolen throne. It was in the every person are we assuming heavy ties out tie unbuck, but from his aura inside the annex, the family grew restless. The noise outside was escalating, a roar of destruction inching closer to the front gate. Unlike the others, Chang looked confused but strangely confident. His uncle, Jong-wan, ordered him to go check the perimeter immediately. But CL Gu-host, are you really doing this? The old man hissed. Chang smiled, a look of pure liberation on his face. You always knew this day would come, father. That's why his eyes. Meanwhile, the guards Yayong turned to. However, Ji stared. Yeomin, even another guard. The only silence with Junyu watched with Jian. He tried to bark. The two remaining brothers collapsed in terror. Chong, the old man, trembling. He had Chong spun, pressing the muzzle. If he hadn't acted, his son Chong didn't. His father looked him in the eye, assuring him of one final truth. Even if he pulled the trigger right now, sound of impending doom, he would never become the president. But Chong, it was a claw. As he fired they tried to encircle the assassin, realizing he carried no firearms. The protagonist quickly recalled that the Central Security Force was composed of elites who protected the highest-ranking executives. He assessed. Tae-ha stopped his sprint. He lost, desperate to survive. He grabbed a guard and used him as a human shield. The man screaming for his comrades to hold their fire. But the security force didn't hesitate. They opened fire, shredding their own ally and leaving one guard frozen in terror as his weapon was sliced cleanly in half. In a flash, a man with one of the elite. Despite his overwhelming strength, Tae-ha gritted his teeth. The wound he had taken earlier was throbbing, slowing him down at the worst possible moment. With every second, the injury drained his stamina. He snapped back to reality just in time to see a massive fist filling his vision. He managed to destroy, but Tae-ha, no mercy, impossible. His movement, silence falls. In mere seconds, he has annihilated the entire outer perimeter. He strides toward the entrance, retrieving his second blade with terrifying calm. It is as if the carnage round him does not exist. Wiping the gore from his steel, he mutters that it took too long. But something is wrong. The silence is deafening. Did they flee? He reaches the Shang. The scene is a night. Even John was executed. And there, the current president, lying cold in his own blood. His cousin Shang I stay. Do you remember? We must leave immediately. It is too dangerous to stay. The voice is cold, detached, and utterly familiar. Shang glares at his subordinate. I told you to speak only when I was finished talking. But Tae-ha freezes. His blood runs cold. He knows that voice. It is the voice of the monster who slaughtered his family 17 years ago. The memory floods back, the rifle pointed at his mother, the laughter beneath the mask while his world burned. Pure rage explodes. It was you. Tae-ha roars. You are that filth from that day. The madman stifles a giggle. Well, the cat is out of the bag. But stop speaking so casually to me, cousin. It really makes me want to kill you right now. Tae-ha charges, eyes burning with vengeance. Try it. My only goal is to wipe out your entire bloodline. But Chang tuts. There's a saying, when in Korea, act like a Korean. Fix your speech, trash. Tae-ha halts, mind racing. Chang knew he survived. He knew Tae-ha was a Salerno assassin all along. Why wait 17 years? Why let him return just to stage this massacre now? Chang snaps his fingers to get the boy's attention. Listen closely. The show is just beginning. The truth hits Tae-ha like lightning. This isn't a coup. Chang isn't taking power by force. He wants to frame me, Tae-ha realizes. He killed them all to pin it on me and take the presidency legally. The bodyguard steps forward. No introductions needed. Tae-ha raises his dagger. The bodyguard opens fire. Unbelievable skill. Tae-ha deflects the bullets with his blade, redirecting the projectiles as he closes the distance in a flash of steel. But a shadow strikes. Another guard lands a heavy blow. Tae-ha sensed him, but couldn't dodge in time. This new enemy smirks, blocking his path. I am Jun-ho Park, remember it. Tae-ha leaps back to avoid being cornered. He faces his opponents, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Jun-ho fires again. You are faster than the rumors. You could have been an Olympic athlete with that speed. The other guard blocks the exit. The pressure is immense. Even Tae-ha feels the weight of the situation crushing down. Is flexibility your secret? Jun-ho taunts, launching a frantic barrage of attacks. Tae-ha realizes the danger. These two are different. Their aura is suffocating. They are true elites, unlike the trash outside. If not for his injury, he could crush them. But time is running out. Chang is watching, guard down. This is his only chance. Besides, Tae-ha calculates the odds in a split second. If the woman beside him is Dean, the math doesn't add up. There are 3 guards visible in the room, but his intel confirmed for members attended the meeting. Suddenly, his train of thought is cut short. Juno lunges forward to attack, but in that fraction of a second, Tae-ha spots a reflection in his opponent's pupil. It's the 4th guard, Yaman. He's positioned behind Tae-ha, sword raised for a blind spot execution. But to everyone's shock, the protagonist vanishes into thin air. The guards freeze, unable to process his speed. Tae-ha lands silently on the ground, realizing this hidden assassin is the final piece of the puzzle. Yaman curses under his breath, furious that Juno's eyes gave away his position. But his partner snaps back. If killing this boy were easy, he would be dead already. Jonik reloads his firearms, drooling over the massive bonus placed on Tae-ha's head. Without hesitation, both Jonik and the bespectacled guard unleash a hail of bullets and attacks at the assassin. Watching the chaos, Chan observes the battlefield, noting how difficult it is to track a fight blending range and melee combat so seamlessly. He smirks, noting these men were trained specifically to counter Tae-ha. The rumors of his inhuman speed had already circulated through Interpol. Chan admits he considered just bombing the building, but the glory of killing the legendary Tae-ha in single combat would cement his fame forever. Juno steps in, using his massive frame to block the boy's path and prevent any escape. Jonik laughs, taunting that speed implies nothing now. Tae-ha has been cornered like a rat in a trap. The heavy guard swings his brass knuckles, aiming to crush Tae-ha's skull. The protagonist stands still, eyes tracking the incoming blow with eerie calm. Chan thanks him for the entertainment with a malevolent grin. The fist connects. Tae-ha is sent flying, slamming into the wall with enough force to crack the concrete foundation. The narrative flashes back to 4 years ago. Regina is screaming at a younger Tae-ha, demanding to know what the hell he just did. She had ordered him to eliminate the traitor, not use his body to paint the walls. The gore is so horrific that even she fights the urge to vomit. Her voice cracks with fury. With his godlike speed, he could have ended it silently. Why this carnage? She softens slightly, recalling the day they saved him. She knows he loved Lorenzo, and this betrayal hurts, but killing like a butcher acts like this will only ignite a cycle of vengeance that never ends. As his mentor, and the voice of the Cerno family, Regina begs him to never repeat such brutality. But Tae-ha stands there, expressionless. He coldly replies that this is the only way. People forget silence. They never forget horror. Regina stares, confused by his dark logic. Tae-ha explains that a silent death is a mercy traitors don't deserve. Everyone must know the nightmare that awaits them if they cross the family. Rumors must spread. The stories must be exaggerated, twisted, and terrifying. Only fear will reduce the number of traitors. Otherwise, they will be fighting this endless battle forever. Regina asks if he truly chose the path of a monster just to prevent future bloodshed. The contrast is chilling. Every inch of the room is stained crimson, a testament to his violence. She whispers that it is absurd for such darkness to come from a boy standing in a river of blood, without a single drop on his beautiful face. Shaking off the memory, Regina sighs. Being an assassin truly doesn't suit his soul. The scene snaps back to the present. Juno suddenly freezes. A sharp glint of light erupts from the center of his chest. He coughs violently, blood spraying as the realization hits. Even Chan and his bodyguards gasp. Tae-ha hadn't just taken the hit. He had delivered a brutal, unseen slash. With eyes burning like a predator, he turns to the remaining enemies. Terror seizes Yaman. He frantically raises his weapon, but it is too late. In a blink, his eye is pierced by Tae-ha's blade. As his life fades, Yaman realizes their fatal mistake. They underestimated a monster. It isn't just speed, it is overwhelming power. The legends were true. Those who see his real skills never live to speak of them. Despite his dominance, Tae-ha is hurt. His wounds are tearing open, and the bleeding is getting worse. But Jonik is the one trembling in desperation. No one told him the target's strength was this immense. It defies logic. Suddenly, a new figure, Master Cheon-u, appears. He orders the woman to evacuate Chan immediately, promising to follow. Tae-ha's eyes widen, realizing his cousin is trying to flee. Tae-ha roars his name. He shatters Jonak's weapons in a blur of motion and sprints toward the elevator. Chan peeks his head out in panic. Consumed by rage, Tae-ha demands to know where he is going. The debt hasn't been paid yet, but blocking the elevator stands Master Cheon-u, the president's elite shield. He calmly greets the young master. Tae-ha is shocked to see the president's personal bodyguard here. Ignoring the danger, he leaps forward, commanding the man to move. The impossible happens. Master Cheon-u catches both of Tae-ha's blades with a single bare hand. The older man prepares a devastating counter. He admits Tae-ha has grown strong, but he is still a child in his eyes. He unleashes a flurry of bone-crushing strikes. The sound of bones snapping echoes through the hall. Tae-ha's ribs shatter under the impact, and he coughs up mouthfuls of blood. Master Cheon-u crushes the blades in his grip like paper. He looks down at the broken boy and declares that, unfortunately, this is where the story ends. With a thunderous impact to the same spot, he sends the assassin's body launching into the void. But the old master freezes, his eyes widening in shock. Music. His suit is torn. The blade missed his skin by a fraction of an inch. He barks at his subordinate, Jang Hyo. "Get up, I know you're not dead yet." Jang Hyo stammers, his voice trembling with terror. I thought I was done for." But the chairman cuts him off. The building is rigged to blow. "Grab your partner. We leave. Now." Lying broken on the cold floor was the protagonist, silent and still. To the world, he looked like a corpse. Reaching the rooftop helipad, the chairman's bodyguard marches toward the waiting chopper. Jung shouts over the rotor noise, "Did you finish the job?" The man nods, a cold professional. "Confirmed. I'll detonate the charges the second we lift off." Junsu moves to seal the cabin for takeoff, but the chairman stops him with a raised hand. "No. Leave the door open. Get us in the air." Putting on his headset, the bodyguard frowns. "Sir, the wind resistance will fly straight into the turbulence. I suggest we close it." But the psychopath refuses, his eyes gleaming with madness. "I need to see it. I've waited a lifetime for this moment." The helicopter begins to ascend, Chong standing right at the edge of the abyss. He watches the mansion below with a calm, twisted smile. "Goodbye, hellhole. God, I always hated that house." As he rants about the hypocrisy and annoyance of his own bloodline, Dan and Junsu exchange uneasy glances. Suddenly, a memory flashes in the madman's mind. The protagonist's vow that this wasn't over. A wicked grin spreads across his face. Poor, foolish child. He lived only for revenge, and in the end, he met the exact same fate. He turns to his men. "Did you know, the word family comes from the Latin famulus. It means slave." Gripping the detonator, he raises his arms like a conductor. "Witness this. From the ashes, I will change the Cheon-u Group forever." The nest of those secret rats disappears now. Inside the crumbling building, Tae-ha lay unconscious on the floor, the darkness threatening to claim him. His eyes flutter open, dazed. The deafening roar of the helicopter propellers vibrates through his bones. He realizes the truth instantly. It's over. But then, a spark of defiance ignites in his soul. No, there is still time. Meanwhile, above him, Chong watches the destruction unfold. He tosses the detonator aside like a toy. Now that is how you wrap things up with a bang. But as the head-to-head, both guards leap up, panicked by the ambush. Furious, Chong screams at the man hanging from his leg, "You insect! What do you think you're doing?" The gravity is blood gushes like a fountain. Tae-ha roars, "I will kill you no matter what." Diane draws her weapon, shouting, "Master, step back." But the lunatic snatches the pistol from her hand. "No, I'll do it myself." He aims the the moment but the impact isn't over. He slams into the mansion's outer wall crack before rolling onto a passing truck near the stream. A cycle. Fate works in mysterious ways. It was one of the victims Tae-ha had rescued from the security company. The man freezes, recognizing his savior. Seeing the blood and broken limbs, he thinks the worst. Am I too late? But then, a faint, desperate rasp reaches his ears. He squints, looking closer at Tae-ha. The protagonist is barely clinging to consciousness, forcing words through the pain. Even with it. Meanwhile, the message with a man he messages his contact. Is that voice and name clear enough for you? The buyer replies instantly. Where is the director right now? The young hacker smirks, fingers flying across the keyboard. The partner on the other end seems hesitant. The hacker makes an offer. I'll give you 200. That should be enough to catch a big fish from the majority party, right? Silence. For a long moment, only the typing bubble appears. Then, the counteroffer hits the screen. 30. The hacker slams his hand on the desk, frustrated. 30. Are you kidding me? This dirt is worth way more than that. But the hacker saw. But if the intel was linked to the Cheon-u, static crackled, gear packed. The owner was already bustling about, prepping for the lunch rush. Her sharp eyes caught him immediately. She scolded him with motherly concern, warning that loitering here would only make him late for school. He brushed it off but the clock was ticking. A thug strutted in, the air suddenly thick with tension. He demanded the owner sell the place before they stopped being polite about it. Bok-soo, the ringleader, turned his predatory gaze on Gray. You agree with me, don't you, kid? The auntie didn't. Turning her back on the rage simmered it. The thug didn't like being he cleared. I'd never sell my. The weight of the world pressed down on his shoulders. He let out a long, heavy sigh. Exhaustion soaked into his bones. He was lost in a maze with no exit. His district was titans like the people like him. Yet, a customer leaned. She waved. Gray marched to the back, but the rage boiled over. He didn't set the bag down, he hurled it. The crash echoed his internal scream. I have to do something. She was one. None of this was her fault. Someone from the Cheon-u Group is worth 1,000 times the normal price. The risk was insane, but the reward was freedom. Fingers trembling, Gray typed out the message. The reply was instant. Do you have something for me? Heart hammering against his fear. At first, there was no time. As consciousness faded, the truth hit him harder than the punch. He finally understood why the price was so high. He wasn't the seller. He was the bait. Gray woke up. Where did wait, are you Jingu's kid? That reporter who tried to expose Cheon-u and got himself killed. Gray didn't cower. He looked the man in the eye and smirked. The leader's expression darkened. He slowly unclasped his expensive watch. You think this is funny? Asterisk crap. The beating was yet, through bloodied teeth. I'm going to. He raised the hammer, ready to strike. But fate intervened. A phone rang, stopping the execution in its tracks. A subordinate. The leader froze. The fat guard delivers a brutal kick to his ribs, sneering that he will return to finish the job later. Trapped inside the cell with an old man and a trembling woman, Gray seethes on the floor. He curses his father for being a righteous fool. That ridiculous. It does. If you are gunfire, terror, a shadow. His voice is cold. They scramble toward the exit, shouting their thanks. But Gray pauses, glancing back one last time. Bodies litter the hallway in a river of blood. Did one man really slaughter an entire squad? Hours later, Gray finally stumbles back home. Yang-suk is frantic, demanding to know where a girl. But Yang-suk watches him go, her eyes filled with concern. The moment the door clicks shut, Gray's legs give out and he collapses. His heart races. Was that the Ouyang gang? They were armed to the teeth with military-grade firearms. Yet that rifling. He recalls the department head's interrogation, demanding to know if his father left behind any more files on the Cheon-u syndicate. Intel is locating. His fingers fly across the keyboard. There it is. It matches. Damn it. Gray. Still, an enemy of Cheon-u might be the only ally he has left in this rotten world. Suddenly, Gray. He doesn't know Tae-ha's motive, but his gut tells him this is the turning point of his life. He arrives just in time to see a silhouette dangling desperately from a helicopter. Following the crash and screams, Gray rushes to the site. The man is a bloody mess, surely dead, but the grip on his blade hasn't loosened. Tae-ha gasps for air, his eyes burning with fury as he declares it is not over. Gray is paralyzed by the man's sheer will. Dragging the warrior onto his bike, he speeds home, screaming for his mother. Yang-suk looks up from her work, horrified. She asks who this dying man is and what Gray has done. Desperation floods his voice. He begs her to save him, no matter what. The hours tick by in agonizing silence. When the warrior finally wakes, his aura is still sharp. He demands to know who Gray is and why he was saved. Gray steps forward. He introduces himself as a dealer of secrets, admitting he has been hunting for a weapon exactly like Tae-ha. Tae-ha scoffs, eyeing the teenager with suspicion. A kid like this, a data broker? Think of me as a wholesale merchant. Gray counters confidently. My intel is top tier. He explains that he supplies the financial sectors and other brokers. He nearly died walking into that Cheon-u trap, thinking he was meeting a contact. Tae-ha narrows his eyes. He realizes this is the boy from the cell. He asks if Gray recognized him from a single glance. I did, Gray smirks. I am aiming for the youngest broker of the year award, after all. Silence falls. Taeha's gaze shifts, locking onto a specific object in the boy's possession. How long was I out? The question hangs heavily in the air. The boy replies calmly, for days. For days. He lost too much time. Shaking off the grogginess, he calls out to Gray. He needs to know if this kid's broker contacts are the real deal. But the kid's confidence cracks. He looks away, admitting the harsh truth. He was bluffing. Tracking Tae-ha down was a miracle in itself. Finding a ghost within the underworld, that requires a different level of access. Information costs money, and right now, Gray wants a return on his investment. He spent a fortune patching Tae-ha up, and nothing in this world is free. Tae-ha ignores the sales pitch. Can you find him or not? Gray counters with a challenge. What will you do if I can't? Tae-ha doesn't hesitate. He turns his back, cold as ice. Grabbing his jacket, he offers a curt thanks. He'll settle his debt once the mission is done. You're leaving. In that condition, Gray shouts, but the assassin is already moving. He has unfinished business that can't wait. Before stepping out, he leaves the kid with a chilling piece of advice. Don't follow me. If you get involved, a kidnapping will be the least of your worries. The aura of death forces Gray back into his chair, trembling. But as the fear fades, a smirk curls on the kid's lips. He realizes this is how the game is truly played. Outside the room, the rich scent of pork fills the air. Is this a restaurant? Suddenly, a voice cuts through. It's Yen-guk, scolding him for moving around. You took .22 caliber rounds, she snaps. I stitched you up, but those fractures won't heal if you keep moving like a maniac. If he tears those wounds open again, not even a miracle worker could save him. Tae-ha bows his head slightly. You must be the doctor. Thank you. He promises to repay her kindness one day. I'm no doctor, she huffs. I run a gukbap restaurant. She warns him not to come crawling back if he bleeds out. And Tae-ha steps into the harsh light of day. The bustling sounds of a market surround him. Ignoring the crowd, he answers a ringing phone in his pocket. This isn't mine, he states flatly. Gray's voice crackles in his ear. Yours is trash. Keep that one until I fix it. He directs Tae-ha to a small box tucked in his pocket. Inside sits a pair of high-tech earbuds. Gray instructs him to put them on immediately. The device is impossibly small. Gray explains the battery link and the hidden mic. And don't cover your chest, the kid adds. Your top button is a camera. Tae-ha sighs. I warned you. Stay close to me, and you're as good as dead. But Gray drops a bombshell. Why are you slaughtering the Cheon-u family? Tae-ha freezes. The kid knows. Gray chuckles darkly. Don't look so shocked. In this country, a massacre like that doesn't stay secret. While Tae-ha slept, the nation plunged into chaos. The news calls it terrorism. Tae-ha narrows his eyes. Why are you helping a monster like me? Gray lays out the chessboard. This neighborhood is a war zone. The Ojan gang and the Cheon-u clan are tearing each other apart for redevelopment rights. It's not just the gangs. The pressure is mounting from all sides, squeezing the life out of the locals. But Gray is pragmatic. Taeha's skills are useful. Your problem is urgent, so I'll help you first. But this isn't charity. I need a favor later. Until then, we stay connected. Tae-ha tests the boy's resolve. I could just hand you over to the Cheon-u clan. The threat hangs heavy in the air. But then, a faint smile. Fine. Let's see what you're made of, brat." Moments later, the scenery shifts to the sleek district of the city. Tae-ha enters a private vault facility, the air cool and sterile. He pulls open a heavy drawer, searching for his lifeline. Watching through the camera, Gray is stunned. "I didn't know a place like this existed in Seoul. Can't they track us here?" "Trust is their only currency," Tae-ha explains. "They don't make deals, and they don't sell out their clients. People store gold here, and their darkest sins. It's the safest place on earth." Gray falls silent. He realizes he's not dealing with a thug. He's dealing with a professional ghost. Through the lens, Gray watches Tae-ha gear up. But confusion strikes. No guns, just knives. Against an army, that's suicide. Cold sweat drips onto the floor. Tae-ha's body feels like lead. The phantom pain of 1,000 stabs pierces through his composure. It's the same suffocating dread he felt back then. The shadow of Rae-jun's beating still haunts him. Tae-ha shakes off the demons. "Did you find him?" "He needs Pil-jong, the CEO of Night Move. That's the broker who smuggled you into Korea," Gray confirms. "A big shot from Europe, now desperate for a smuggling ship to flee to China. The borders are locked down tight," Gray adds. "After you massacred the Cheon-u family, the whole system is on high alert." Tae-ha's eyes gleam cold. "Spread the word. Tell the underworld there's a ship available. Charge 10 times the normal rate." "What happens when you find him?" Gray asks, voice trembling. "Are you planning to escape with him?" Tae-ha slides his blades into their sheaths. The sound of steel rings out. "No," he whispers. "I'm going to kill him." The ambush that almost ended him wasn't an accident. It was a setup. And the only rat who knew his location was Pil-jong. With ice in his veins, Tae-ha declares a single truth: traitors deserve death. Later, inside a silent church, he admits he doesn't care if the target is an old friend. A hooded figure steps into the dimly lit chapel. He approaches the confessional booth, calling for the priest and asking if they can speak. He whispers a specific code phrase. It is a signal that, in this world, every man is out for himself. Pil-jong complains about the stifling air, questioning why they had to meet in such a holy place. He sneers, claiming to be a devout Catholic, though he certainly doesn't look the part. However, the so-called priest inside ignores the small talk, demanding to know where the money is. The informant sighs and reaches into his bag. He reveals, then, suddenly, Pil-jong, but the response leaves Pil-jong frozen in shock. Tae-ha speaks up, asking how his old friend could fail to recognize his voice. Pil-jong's eye, he curses, he had Pil-jong, but Pil-jong threw a Tae-ha stepping with a cold, "It doesn't matter." Tae-ha declares that seeing them armed with bats and knives is enough. He considers them a direct threat to his life. And if they are Tae-ha calmly prepares for the clash. Gray knows the assassin's arm isn't the only problem. He has fractured ribs and untreated gunshot wounds. But he does a dag, but Tae-ha uses his own arm sling to trap the weapon. In a flash, he slams a brutal elbow strike with his good arm. In the blink of an eye, Tae-ha has dismantled every single attacker who dared to approach. He explains the psychology of battle. When one side dominates early, the opponents lose their composure. With a fortune in cash right in front of them, adrenaline made them sloppy. However, one of them is different. One man is holding something he shouldn't be. The remaining thugs charge in a desperate wave. Tae-ha takes a single step and vanishes from their sight. Moving with godlike speed, he rushes past the front line. His target is clear: eliminate the one man capable of hurting him. The attackers are left swinging at empty air, completely confused. Even Gray can't process the movement. A weapon clatters to the floor as Tae-ha ends the threat. Tae-ha turns calmly to the survivors, asking who wants to be next. Outside, the church remains deceptively peaceful. In the dark parking lot, a single car sits quietly. Gray is inside, staring at his monitor in disbelief. That man isn't human, even with a shattered body. He moves like a demon of death. Suddenly, Tae-ha's voice crackles over the comms, asking if Gray can hear him. Tae-ha orders the kid to enter the confessional and retrieve the money bag. He admits he no longer has the strength to carry it. Gray stammers in fear, asking what he means, but Tae-ha chuckles. He knew Gray was nearby. After all, Gray warned him about the ambush before it even happened. Gray stood frozen, his tongue heavy in his mouth. Despite the cold sweat trickling down his spine, he steeled his resolve and accepted the mission. Stepping out of the vehicle, the boy approached the looming church. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for the handle. With a deep breath, he pushed the heavy doors open. The stench of iron hit him instantly. The sanctuary was a slaughterhouse, painted in crimson and littered with corpses. And there, sitting calmly on a pew amidst the carnage, was the protagonist. Panic clawed at Gray's throat, but he forced his legs to move. As he inched toward the altar, his breath hitched. He had just spotted the lifeless body of the protagonist's former ally lying cold on the floor. Bile rose in his throat. It was a gruesome masterpiece of death, with broken bodies scattered like discarded dolls across the holy ground. Trying to keep his voice steady, the boy spoke up. He had called a taxi. Their ride out of this hell would arrive in 10 minutes. But as he looked closer, Gray realized Tae-ha was in critical condition. "What happened to you?" he stammered, offering to call Yang-suk to prepare emergency treatment immediately. **** without a word, the madman snatched the phone and stabbed it. Destroying the device instantly, Gray froze, terror rooting him to the spot. Slowly peeling off a blood-soaked glove, the protagonist muttered darkly. When he woke up, everything had been changed: his clothes, his phone. But strangely, only these gloves remained on his hands. The boy stood silent, too terrified to interrupt the predator's monologue. Beneath the glove lay the dark crest of the Salerno family. The man's eyes bored into the boy. "You know exactly who you are dealing with, don't you?" Gray could only nod. He recited the name, the father's legacy, and the bloodline. The grandson of the late chairman of the Cheon-u Group, the only Asian executive in the Italian Salerno Mafia. A ghost in the underworld, barely in his 20s, with a bounty that made seasoned killers tremble. 5.5 billion won on his head. Desperate, the boy raised his hands. "I wasn't plotting anything, not even the lady knows I'm here. I just need your help." Tae-ha's gaze was cold. "Is my help worth more than your life? Or perhaps you're thinking of claiming that bounty yourself?" Gray shook his head violently. He tried to explain that the Cheon-u Group was the very reason he and his adoptive mother were forced to live like rats in the shadows. The protagonist cut him off sharply. "If you were smart, you would have handed me over to Chang-gu. That would have solved all your problems." He recalled their earlier conversation. The kid had big dreams. He wanted to become the youngest legendary broker in the underworld. Tae-ha had seen right through him. Despite the boy's talent, his career was stuck in the mud. He had the guts to enter the field, something no sane person does. But he lacked the scars of experience. "Top informants are old for a reason," Tae-ha sneered. Then a dangerous smile formed. "So, tell me, do you want to step into the real arena?" Meanwhile, inside a towering skyscraper, two figures walked down a pristine hallway. One warned the other, "Only speak when spoken to." Hwang scoffed, clearly irritated. "Relax. I'm not stupid enough to say anything that would disadvantage Ouyang." His companion sighed. Gangsters aren't exactly known for their eloquence or tact. Even through his annoyance, Hwang couldn't deny the truth. As they entered the office, the man bowed low. "Apologies for keeping you waiting, sir." Back in the blood-soaked chapel, Tae-ha acknowledged the boy's potential. "I'll grant your favor," he said. "But afterward, you belong to me. You will be walking a tightrope over hell. If you get caught, a quick death will be a luxury you won't get. But if we survive, you will become the king of brokers." The protagonist's eyes burned with vengeance. "That is my promise. I will crush Chang-gu and burn his empire to ash." In the office, the leader of Ouyang swirled his drink. "I didn't expect you dogs to come running so soon. I assumed Chong would be too busy burying his relatives to deal with business. We wouldn't dare move without your command," they started, but the man raised a hand. Silence fell instantly. Fear choked the air. With a delicate gesture, the eccentric leader signaled for quiet. He began to nod rhythmically as a recording started playing through the speakers. He closed his eyes, raising a clenched fist in a dramatic pose of resistance. Lost in the melody, the two gang members exchanged confused glances. They didn't understand, but when the song ended, someone started clapping slowly. "A pity," the man beside Hwang said smoothly. We arrived just as the masterpiece was ending. The leader turned. "Do you recognize this piece?" The subordinate named the composition perfectly but added, "The rhythm seemed disjointed." Perhaps the performer was unskilled. The lunatic's face darkened instantly. "Turn it off," he barked at his bodyguard. As Dean covered her ears against the sudden shout, the man hissed, "That was a 6th grade competition, and I never practiced again." His voice dropped to a chilling whisper, "And every single relative who watched me play that day is now a corpse." "Do you know what happened?" he asked, eyes wide with madness. If they had known the Reaper was coming, they wouldn't have been slaughtering sheep waiting for the butcher. Huang stepped forward, sweating. "I warned them. I told them to cancel the meeting. That assassin wasn't just some common thug. It was Chong who ignored the warnings." Suddenly, Chong cut him off, his aura exploding with murderous intent. "Put out that cigarette." "I knew exactly what I was doing," Chong growled, his patience snapping. The accusation had clearly touched a nerve. "That was a traditional family emergency meeting," Chong spat. "You think that is something I can just cancel on a whim? That is why I paid you $100 million. I paid you to handle that man quietly, without alerting the rest of the family." The man leaned forward, resting his knee heavily against his cane, his eyes burning with a lethal mix of arrogance and fury. Clutching his injured leg, he grits his teeth and admits the truth. Instead of neutralizing the assassin, they suffered devastating losses, forcing his hand to use that last resort. The statement hangs in the air. The man narrows his eyes, his voice dripping with suspicion as he asks how Hyunmin is the only survivor when every other guard was slaughtered. Hyunmin scoffs, his patience wearing thin. He repeats that the assassin follows a twisted code of honor, a code that he, fortunately, didn't violate. A cold smile plays on Lim's lips. He suggests that perhaps the terrorists' only rule is to avoid friendly fire. The implication infuriates Hyunmin instantly. Rage flares in his eyes. He demands the man stop barking nonsense, asking if they truly believe he would gamble with his parents' lives and the organization's honor. Cheon leans back, his expression mocking. He muses that it must be nice to have parents to hide behind, considering his own folks are already 6 feet under. Tension spikes as the Ojang member adjusts his glasses, ready to intervene. He cuts to the chase, demanding to know who exactly handled the so-called terrorist. The answer is obvious. It was Mr. Jun-woo. The woman shifts her gaze to the old bodyguard, her eyes narrowing with renewed suspicion. Kwan turns to the bodyguard, asking for confirmation directly. The old master nods immediately, his face an unreadable mask. Yet, even he senses the lingering doubt in the room. Jun-woo nods slowly, asking plainly what the Ojang Group wants from them in exchange for this mess. Lim waves his hand dismissively. He claims he has no interest in money or leverage. His only demand is absolute silence regarding this humiliating incident. The condition is simple. If anyone asks, Hyunmin never saw the assassin. But deep down, he can't understand why Cheon's group is so desperate to bury the truth. His companion flicks a lighter open, the flame reflecting in his eyes. He takes a drag and asks if silence is truly all they desire. Cheon glares, about to demand he extinguish the cigarette. But Jun-woo places a heavy hand on his young master's shoulder. Startled, Cheon glances up at his bodyguard. Jun-woo speaks on his behalf, his voice firm as he assures them that the terms are acceptable. The Ojang representative sighs, claiming he needs time to process this madness. He offers a cigarette to the bodyguard, but Jun-woo politely declines, citing he kicked the habit long ago. Suddenly, Cheon slams his fist onto the table. His fury boils over as he demands to know if these people have no fear of death. He reminds them that he is the future president. He demands to know what that old worm thinks he's doing, hurling insults at the man across the table. But the man stands up, unfazed. He looks down at the little brat, telling him to know his place. Precisely the kind of arrogance his boss predicted. The meeting is over. The man bids them farewell, directing his final agreement to the bodyguard, ignoring the young master entirely. He drops the cigarette butt onto the pristine floor and grinds it with his heel. He sneers, suggesting they provide an ashtray and a wet napkin next time. As the door clicks shut, a deafening silence descends upon the room. Hyunmin stands frozen for a few seconds, processing the encounter. Kwon breaks the silence. Adjusting, he scoffs. Hyunmin, calmly. The elevator doors slide open. As they step out, he declares their new priority. They must find the assassin who attacked the Cheon Group before anyone else does. Kwon argues that the assassin is likely dead, but his companion shakes his head. Jun-woo is strong, certainly, but he is known for never taking a life. That was the confirmation he sought earlier. Hyunmin is left stunned by the layers of deception unraveling before him. He realizes the assassin likely wasn't hired by Cheon, given the heavy casualties. The killer was merely a pawn in a much larger, deadlier game. Hyunmin recalls the terrorists' words that he hadn't been to Korea in a long time. He suggests recruiting the assassin to their side to take down the Cheon Group once and for all. A dark glint enters the old man's eyes. He agrees that it would be a magnificent play. However, his tone shifts to ice. If they find the assassin, they must kill him immediately. Hyunmin is confused, struggling to grasp the sudden change in strategy. The old chairman admits his true irritation. Cheon dared to imply that Hyunmin wasn't a match for the assassin. That insult cannot stand. That is why, the next time they cross paths, they must demonstrate exactly who holds the true power in the city. Chairman Jae-pil admits he dislikes the Ojang Group, but he hates seeing his men humiliated even more. Meanwhile, back in the penthouse, ice cubes clatter into a glass as Cheon speaks. He thanks his late father for one specific gift, asking if his silent bodyguards can guess what it is. The room remains still, the broken coffee table serving as a reminder of the earlier violence. The bodyguards stand like statues, offering no answer. Pouring amber whiskey into his glass, Cheon explains his talent. He's exceptional at reading the room. When the old man asked if Tae-ha was truly dead, the air became suffocating. Leaning back into the leather couch, Cheon recounts Jun-woo's report. The bodyguard had sworn he finished off his cousin during the chase. The story was that Tae-ha jumped, injuring his leg in the process, and fell to his death. Yet, his body has never been recovered. Cheon brings the glass to his lips, pausing as a terrifying thought takes root. His gaze turns predatory, chilling the room. He asks the question that changes everything. Is Tae-ha still alive? He accuses Jun-woo of letting the former young master escape on purpose. Jun-woo's expression doesn't waver. He states coldly that he was the one who pulled the trigger, shooting the boy from the helicopter with his own hands. Jang's voice was ice cold. He stated flatly that if he had handled the hit himself, the target would be dead. The bodyguard trembled. Admitting the boy's strength was nothing short of monstrous. Rage exploded. Jang hurled his glass against the counter, shattering it into dust. With a deadly glare, he hissed that it was time to move forward. As he stormed out, he barked his priorities. The council meeting was everything. He needed to secure those votes to join the committee, no matter the cost. The madman grinned, a twisted light in his eyes. Whether Tae-ha was breathing or rotting, the old man couldn't betray him now. He turned to President Junsu. Isn't that right? The old man smoothed his suit, his voice steady. He never broke a promise. Together, they marched toward the rooftop where the helicopter blades sliced the air. Yen-man was already waiting. Jang raised an eyebrow. Genuinely surprised the guard had crawled back from the abyss alive. But Yen-man wasn't relieved. He protested, desperation in his voice. This wasn't the deal. He begged them to reconsider his transfer. He had served the Cheon-u family with his life for years. To be tossed aside as a mere director's bodyguard, it was an insult to his loyalty. If I knew this would happen, he spat, I never would have betrayed my former boss. The lunatic stepped closer, mocking him. Who told you that you could get beaten like a dog and still bark? The air grew heavy. Before the madman could strike, Yen-man looked at Junsu, bowing his head in silent, humiliating defeat. His boss sneered. He should be grateful he wasn't disposed of after such a pathetic failure. Even so, Yen-man screamed out, I'm calling for you, Junsu. The old man didn't look back. Stay calm, he commanded coldly. I will contact you later. The helicopter ascended, leaving the failure behind. Yen-man watched them disappear into the sky. Meanwhile, in the gritty underbelly of the city, Young Suk's restaurant was open for business. Tae-ha nodded slowly. It made sense now. Gray identified him because his late father had been a researcher for the company. Gray pointed to the tattoo on Tae-ha's hand. That, combined with the hunt for a 20-year-old Asian male linked to the Cheon-u massacre, the puzzle pieces fit perfectly. Tae-ha smirked, impressed. Not bad, he admitted. You actually used your brain for once. His adoptive mother, Young Suk, scoffed from the counter. Looks like you have way too much free time on your hands. She grew serious. For someone from Cheon-u to return for revenge, he needed a master plan. You shouldn't be sitting around chatting, she warned. Gray nearly choked on his rice. He stared at her, horrified. Are you betraying me just to keep him busy? Tae-ha's eyes darkened. He muttered under his breath, traitors must be purged. Gray froze, trying to laugh it off, but Young Suk just shrugged. It's only fair. She wiped the table, her voice grim. A killer raised by the Mafia doesn't learn trust easily. That's just survival. Tae-ha leaned back, his expression unreadable. He wasn't just idling. He was preparing contingencies for the worst-case scenarios. Don't worry, Tae-ha said calmly. Anyone hated by Cheon-u or Ojang is safe with me. He went back to eating as if discussing the weather. A chill ran down their spines. They both realized the implication. If they betrayed him, he would handle them just as easily as his enemies. Suddenly, the door swung open. A group of thugs stomped in, loudly complaining about the stifling heat. One goon pointed at Young Suk. Crank the AC to full blast. How are you gonna pay your interest if your customers melt away? Young Suk glared. I paid every cent. She turned to Tae-ha, signaling him to leave and come back later. This was trouble. She shooed Gray toward the door for school. The thug leader, Bok-soo, sneered. Leave the kid. I won't touch them. But Bok-soo paused. He frowned, his gaze locking onto the stranger in the corner. He seemed confused, then irritated. He had never seen this boy before. Who comes to a dump like this to eat? Meanwhile, Tae-ha was staring intently at the massive radish kimchi on his plate. Bok-soo's temper flared. He slammed his hand on the table. Hey, you choking on your food or are you just deaf? Gray stood up abruptly. I'm heading to school. He rushed toward the exit, but stopped, glancing back at Tae-ha with worry. The memory of their pact flooded his mind. He had made Tae-ha promise one thing before agreeing to help him. No killing. Gray whispered urgently. Don't turn the neighbors against each other. Please. Tae-ha looked at him, deadpan. Do you think I hunt people for sport? Gray's silence spoke volumes. That was exactly what he did. Tae-ha sighed. Fine. What's the request? Gray lowered his voice. The 3rd district of Jangseo. It's in a deadlock between the Cheon-u Group and the Ojang Syndicate. It was a powder keg waiting to explode. But the chaos was halted by a local gang, the Yabari. They had somehow forced a ceasefire. Tae-ha raised an eyebrow. A small-time gang stopped a war between Cheon-u and Ojang? That's impossible. It's true, Gray insisted. The Yabari ensured everyone's safety. They're even buying buildings to form a housing cooperative for leverage. Tae-ha's eyes narrowed. He sensed something was off. I disagree. That doesn't add up. If a solution existed, the mayor who was backed by Ojang would have already implemented it. Politics didn't work like that. Worse, Young Suk had tried to negotiate with the boss, but she was dismissed as worthless. Now, she needed Tae-ha to speak for her, but the condition remained. He couldn't kill anyone. No permanent damage. He had to use words, not blades. Tae-ha analyzed the situation. To him, they were just common thugs. Yet, they had made crime lords back off. There was a mystery here. He simply stood up, thanking Young Suk for the meal. Bok-soo's face turned red with fury. Are you seriously ignoring me right now? The thug lunges for the kid, expecting an easy target. But he doesn't get far. Young Suk steps in, blocking his path with an iron gaze. Her voice is ice cold. She warns him again that nobody touches her customers. She has already paid her dues, so she demands to know what this ugly trash is doing here. Humiliated, the goon raises a hand to strike her, but Tae-ha intervenes instantly, blocking the slap with nothing but a simple bowl. Before Gray can even leave the shop, the 3 thugs are sent flying out the door. The protagonist doesn't let up. He steps out, following them into the street with the presence of a predator. It took less than 10 seconds to dismantle them, sprawled on the ground in terror. Bozu trembles. He screams at the brat, demanding to know if he realizes who he just messed with. As Tae-ha looms over them, his mind races. His path to vengeance is built on 30 intricate grand schemes. Yet, even with perfect planning, chaos exists. He never calculated that his true enemy in this timeline would be Chong. Because of this oversight, he considers the current situation a failure. But he is not out of the game yet. He can still predict his enemy's next move. Even with the Jin family bloodline, power isn't guaranteed. To seize control, he still needs to be elected president by the board of directors. He decides to use the Jiangsu district development to shake up the board. Looking down at the delinquents, he issues a cold command. Take him to their boss immediately. The thugs, it is Suri, cool as Suri scoff, the protagonist, and looking up snipers, and furthermore, if their leader is a former officer, their command structure is likely efficient and deadly. He wonders if the disrespect sparks a flash of anger in his eyes. But before he can take a step, a gunshot rings out. The bullet slams into the asphalt inches from his toes. Suri's, she tells, clenching her guards, a massive Warren stand. The giant pauses, his gaze intense. Then, shockingly, he obeys. He steps aside as ordered, leaving Suri completely baffled by her own subordinate's submission. She screams, but he leans in. He brings his fear and confusion wash over her as the reality of his words sinks in. The protagonist turns his back on her, walking away as he declares that they aren't even worth his time. Suri finally regains. She asks if that is why he let a lunatic get within striking distance of her. It is a test of their gang's unity and instinct. Warren smiles. Later, the chaos, they step. Yang Suk, she turns her, but at that exact, Suri ignores the watching this heart once but repaired. However, the gray lean, she treated Tae-ha, the steel threads tighten around his throat. She hisses, claiming she's been holding back. But this ungrateful brat seems determined to find an early grave. Unfazed, Tae-ha grins. He senses the strange tension in the wires. These aren't ordinary weapons. You know that they're not him, her. On the surface, it looks like a stalemate. He sneers. But in reality, you're just a puppet dancing on strings pulled from the shadows. Tae-ha had wished. Tae-ha drops his final card. There is only one option left. Is it Cheon-gu? Rage flares in her eyes, and she yanks the wires with lethal intent. Ping! To her absolute shock, the unbreakable wires snap like thread. Tae-ha stands free, a dagger gleaming in his hand. Your reaction, he says coolly, gave me the answer I needed. Meanwhile, in a high-rise of pure opulence, a desperate man pounds on the glass, begging the director for mercy. He swears he can double the revenue in 2 months to make up for the failed Lebanon deal. On the the man pleads for another chance, screaming frantically. But the director doesn't even blink. The beast lunges, and the screams are silenced forever. The director, bring that brat to me, alive, In-woo commands. Back at the restaurant, Tae-ha connects the dots. The true mastermind behind the 3rd district is indeed the Cheon-u Group. And the reason the boss hasn't fought back? She is being held hostage by a threat she cannot ignore. Her wires are. Tae-ha sheathes his blade. I am simply the best in the country at slaughtering members of Cheon-gu. The statement only deepens her confusion. But he offers. Then, Siri. She turns her back, shoulders heavy with an her eyes flash with irritation. She storms. Yang Suk, Tae, the woman she revealed. Only the two of them know the truth. The rest of the neighborhood believes the old boss is dead. If they knew he was alive in enemy hands, they would riot, and they would all be slaughtered. Yang Suk, silence. The spy confirmed. A chilling realism. B1. What about the woman? The merchant. In a flash of the radio crackles. Report. Is B1 secure? The partner demands an answer. But the mercenary can only gasp in agony, desperately trying to rip the blade that Tae-ha just drove through his hand. Unbothered, he scoops. Don't worry about your man. Tae-ha taunts, delivering a chilling promise. I'm signing off now. But I'll be seeing you very, very soon. The next day, Seal her father just meet. Seal, he keeps music. Tears, In-woo. You're just a late. The creep he slides. It's a Seal, he wipes her tears, staring at the photo of her potential savior. As In-woo turns to leave, he drops a final warning. Don't forget, you have everything to lose if you music. Betray. He dials a number, but it rings out. Irritated, he steps into the elevator, ignoring the other person already standing inside. Useless delinquents, In-woo mutters, furious that his hit squad isn't picking up. I told them to find Tae-ha, not take a nap. He continues his rant, finally glancing at the passenger next to him. His blood runs cold. It's Tae-ha, just standing there, staring right into his soul. In-woo opens his mouth to speak, but steel flashes faster than sound. Asterisk before he can process the pain. His ear hits the floor. In-woo looks down, mind unable to comprehend the gore. The scream rips through the elevator shaft. In-woo howls in despair. Tae-ha remains stone-faced. I heard the rumors, he says casually. Apparently, you were looking for me. Do you know who I am? In-woo shrieks, trying to throw a desperate punch. How dare you touch me? He yells. But Tae-ha remembers the intel from Yang-suk. In the redevelopment war, this man didn't just hire guards. He hired the peak mercenaries, ruthless killers who would slaughter anyone for a paycheck. Tae-ha catches the fist effortlessly. Did you really think throwing money at your problems would save you? Tae-ha pulls out a handful of bloody dog tags trophies from the mercenaries he already dismantled. If you want bloodshed, he declares, you better be ready to spill your own. He forces the metal tags into the lunatic's screaming mouth, gagging him with the proof of his failure. Tae-ha leans in, whispering a nightmare. No matter where you go, I will find you, and I will stab you once every single day. He steps back, eyes glowing with predatory intent. Get ready, the hunt starts now. Cut to later. In-woo is sprinting through the halls, hyperventilating in terror. He trips and crashes to the ground. Tae-ha approaches calmly, like a walking disaster. Stop, please, the director screams, scrambling backward. Tears and snot run down his face. Don't come any closer. But his guards are already dead. Tae-ha's calm demeanor is more terrifying than any rage. Thud. Tae-ha drives a blade into In-woo's thigh. Stop being so dramatic, he scoffs. The femoral region has plenty of muscle. You won't die from this. He slowly pulls the blade out, savoring the scream. Tae-ha states coldly that, compared to where he struck the others, this is mercy. He wipes the blood from his knife. I'll see you tomorrow for round 2. The scene shifts. A grand painting of a festival looms over a luxurious room. Jang sips vintage wine, analyzing the board. Out of 15 directors, 7 are mine. 6 back the vice president, and the remaining 2 are neutral. The war for the company is just beginning. In these turbulent times, unity is our only survival strategy, the man declares, his voice laced with false sympathy. It would be a tragedy to see us fall apart now. Another executive nods grimly, the weight of the past heavy in the room. If the late chairman were here, he would be turning in his grave at this mess. Action is the only language the neutral faction understands, he insists, eyes narrowing. Besides, the younger generation is already outpacing the vice president's old guard. We must adapt. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. Chairman Sheehan singles out In-woo, his tone dangerously casual. I hear you're handling the Jang-o redevelopment. Can I expect a victory by the meeting? In-woo stammers his agreement, sweating bullets, but Sheehan just bursts into laughter. Why so stiff, director? You look like a man walking to the gallows. Relax. Then, the laughter dies instantly. Sheehan's voice drops to a terrifying whisper. Just make sure you deliver. We wouldn't want complications to arise between us. Clutching his fresh wound, In-woo forces a nod, suppressing the pain. I assure you, sir, I won't let it come to that. Later, In-woo stumbles toward his car, collapsing into the back seat. Agony rips through him as the adrenaline fades, leaving only the throbbing reminder of his failure. He remembers the dagger twisting in his flesh, the curses of that maniac who promised to destroy him. Rage boils in his gut. Next time, I'll kill him. Home, sir, the driver asks innocently. In-woo kicks the seat in a blind fury. Do you even have to ask? You idiot. Just drive. Paranoid, In-woo frantically locks every door. But as he turns, terror strikes. Tae-ha is already sitting in the passenger seat, calm as a ghost. Committing crimes again, director? In-woo's eyes nearly pop out of his skull. How did he get in? The car was sealed tight. Tae-ha draws his blade, the steel glinting in the dim light. That leg seems to lack discipline. Asterisk shunk dot asterisk he drives the knife straight into Ingu's knee. A scream of pure agony tears through the car. Unbothered, the psychopath steps out into the night. Rest up, I'll be back tomorrow. Who are you? Ingu shrieks, tears streaming down his face. Why are you doing this? You won't get what you want if I'm dead. Night falls over the city. Day 7. Tae-ha muses to himself. I've avoided the vitals, but even a rat like him has a breaking point. He's crumbling. He turns to Saeri. Hand him over to the cops, and your group is finished. Cheon-gu will never let you exist. Her subordinates are restless, confusion clouding their judgment. Why attack the director? It took us years to carve out this territory. This is suicide. One guard steps forward, eyes burning. Boss, let me kill him. If we hand him over now, total war will break out. We need to end this. Saeri demands answers. Why do this? Why come here? Tae-ha smiles, a digital glint in his eye. Error 307. He explains the technical deadlock. That error blocks online banking, a favorite tool against journalists. Someone is strangling your finances and your internet speed. Below 10 kilobytes, he mocks. You're sitting ducks, grinding your teeth while waiting to be hacked into oblivion. Why is this happening? He asks. The guards snap back. You don't understand our world, outsider. You don't know anything. Tae-ha locks eyes with Saeri. You know this is Cheon-gu's doing. Yet you stand firm, claiming it's for your families? His voice hardens. If safety was the goal, you should have fled long ago. Why didn't you fight back when you had the chance? Saeri lowers her head, the weight of his words crushing her defenses. Silence answers for her. Tae-ha turns to leave. Ingu won't run to the council. His pride is too big. Be ready. He walks away, leaving a heavy tension in the air. Horang steps forward. What's in it for you, kid? Tae-ha's grin is feral. I'm taking his spot. I will be the new director of Cheon-gu. Meanwhile, at the safe house where Ingu once fed a man to a lion, the atmosphere is grim. A tragedy for both of us, a voice echoes. In-seok, CEO of the Peak Mercenary Group, shakes his head. A street thug humiliating a director? Unbelievable. Shut up, Ingu snaps. I'm not tolerating this for fun. Smoke curls from Ingu's lips as he trembles with rage. If not for the upcoming council meeting, that bastard would already be a corpse. He spits, the humiliation burning him alive. In-seok raises a brow. Why not just use that as an excuse to mobilize? Impossible, Ingu retorts vehemently. You don't understand the politics. That meeting isn't just a gathering, he hisses. It's a chaotic event that can completely reorganize the hierarchy of Cheon-gu. I can't look weak now. I've finally aligned with Chairman Cheon, Ingu explains. Once I secure my position, I'll have a monster by my side. I can't blow this. He glares at the mercenary. You better deliver, In-seok. If I go down, you go down with me for associating with a failure. In-seok smirks, unfazed. Don't worry. Since that psycho handled my men, I ran a background check. He leans in, voice dropping. Ever heard of the Salernos from Italy? Ingu blinks, confused. Some mafia trash? No, In-seok corrects gravely. They are insane. And that boy, he goes by the code name Vendetta. He's their best executioner. He's an Asian ghost with deep pockets and endless resources. In-seok adds. A senior director at Cheon-gu. He eats guys like that for breakfast. In-seok leans back. So, the question is, how much are you willing to spend to stay alive? If a nuclear bomb appears, you don't use a shield, In-seok declares darkly. You build another nuke. I've summoned the only man who can rival him to Korea. His name is Jerome, he reveals. A monster who crossed paths with Vendetta twice and lived to tell the tale. Ingu scoffs. I need a killer, not a survivor. Find someone who can put him in the ground. You don't understand, In-seok counters, his eyes cold. Vendetta chases traitors to the ends of the earth. Surviving him is a legendary credential in itself. He recounts a chilling legend. Once, Vendetta vanished into the Amazon hellscape to hunt a single traitor, surviving for weeks on nothing but insects and sheer willpower. Ainu sneers, asking if that just makes Jerome a professional coward. But Insect cuts him off cold. If the target were merely good at running, he never would have dared to show his face here so quickly. The CEO lays out the cold, hard numbers. $700,000 upfront, $300,000 upon completion, and a final $300,000 as the brokerage fee. He claims dragging that man in was a nightmare for his squad. Unimpressed, the man asks the lethal question, out of 6 men, how many are actually left standing? He warns that involving his company further will cost double. Without blinking, the director makes a call. He orders 200 kilograms of hard cash brought directly to the first basement floor. The elevator doors slide open with a hiss. Inside, something glimmers seductively under the harsh artificial light. He turns to the CEO, skepticism dripping from his voice. Does it really make sense to burn $1.3 million just to silence a single man? Ainu smirks. That pallet holds 200 kilograms of 50,000 won notes. Each bill weighs exactly 0.97 grams. He knows the guy can do the math. It is more than enough to retire in luxury. He suggests they have a productive conversation. Meanwhile, eyes are locked on a blueprint obtained from the shadows. Gray reveals the truth. It is the layout of the director's fortress. He contacted the security firm and bought the information straight from the source. Tae-ha asks how such a breach was possible. The boy scoffs. Except for Cheong's personal insurer, everyone else has a price tag attached to their loyalty. After all, Kaibu operates on a brutal philosophy. Anyone who fails to generate profit is instantly replaced. In short, the boy the golden wind. Gray shrug. He points. Whether Tae-ha turned confused, Gray admits he has that specific item at home. But he looks at the man with new eyes, never figuring him for the type to use such things. However, with that, Horong asks, he claims, yet, Tae-ha he issues the protagonist as he skills. The director's mansion stands as silent as a tomb. The protagonist has already ghosted past the elite security at the entrance. With Serge, the oppressive, without freezing and Ingu's voice crackles over the intercom. The director laughs. With a mechanical whir, the barrier to the lion's den slides open. The man, the apex, but now, he called the lions by name, commanding them to slaughter. The beasts roared, sprinting toward their prey with terrifying speed. But he didn't. Witnessing the Taejo calmly, he ripped the Ingu began to tremble violently. He recalled the legends of Taejo hunting a traitor in the Amazon, surviving for a month on nothing but insects just to kill his target. That terror intensified as he watched the protagonist chat casually on the phone, completely unfazed by the chaos. Taejo back. He warned that the battle surrender. Great. They spat. Yang. Some questioned why she had such faith in that man, but a voice cut through the bickering, declaring that enough was enough. Assistant Suri, clearly irritated and anxious, finally spoke. She confessed she hadn't witnessed the last war. By the time she returned, the bloodshed had ended. Her voice, she called upon the Yuri gang to unite. They had to drive Cheon-u out once and for all. In Sikri, the truce with Ojang usually prevented attacks, but Taejo's intrusion and the assassin chasing him had changed the game entirely. The bald man, watching he inhaled. The CEO gave the order to activate the drones. Instantly, vans in the alley and parking lot slid open, unleashing a swarm of combat drones. Each drone, as long as their cars, he assured that, kicking the driver's seat in a frenzy. He screamed at the bald man, reminding him of the trauma of getting stabbed in a public sauna. He demanded they focus only on the perimeter, terrified that the psychopath was already hunting him down. Inside his own vehicle, Taejo watched the tracker. He noticed the target moving. Vendetta was closing in. Taejo thought to himself that planting trackers on every single one of the director's cars was the best investment he'd ever made. Still, worry gnawed at him. He wondered how Gray and the others were holding up in the district. He had to end this fast. In the security detail, a guard shouted a warning. The assassin was right on their tail. The driver panicked, wondering how that lunatic found them. As the soldier raised his weapon to fire, he couldn't help but wonder, just how fearless was this vendetta? A hail of bullets shatters the windshield, aimed directly at the driver's skull. Yet, against all odds, Tae-ha survives the barrage without a single scratch. But the damage is done. His car spirals out of control. The security guard screams into his radio, warning the convoy that the target is right on their tail. Suddenly, a bus swerves to align with Tae-ha's careening vehicle. He glances over, eyes widening in surprise, as the enemy commander orders everyone to stay sharp. Through the bus windows, soldiers raise their rifles. Their intent is clear. They won't give him a single second to breathe, let alone counterattack. But Tae-ha's reflexes are godlike. He slams the brakes instantly, throwing his body toward the highway barrier in a desperate gamble. With a roar of exertion, he rips the car door off its hinges. As his vehicle flips violently ahead, he rides the detached door across the asphalt like a steel surfboard. He glances back, adrenaline pumping, calculating his next move. The threat isn't over. Two armed soldiers on motorcycles are closing in fast through the traffic. Precision strikes. He uses the car door to batter the first biker, then leaps through the air, driving a knee into the second guard's helmet, instantly neutralizing both threats. Wasting no time, he commandeers one of the fallen motorcycles for himself. He throttles the engine, accelerating to breakneck speeds to catch the director. As fate would have it, one of the escort vehicles ahead is a flatbed truck with a car ramp. Target acquired. One guard shouts, ordering his squad to unleash hell on the lone rider. But Tae-ha moves like a phantom. He dodges the bullet storm, weaving into their blind spot and gunning it straight for the ramp. It's time to defy physics. He pushes the bike to its limit, launching off the ramp and soaring over the truck. Suspended in midair, he prepares for a legendary maneuver. With feline grace, he leaps from the flying motorcycle, landing perfectly on the roof of a moving security sedan. He rises slowly, balancing on the speeding car. He takes a deep breath, centering his ki for the slaughter to come. Drawing his twin daggers, a cold smile plays on his lips. From now on, he whispers, the real fun begins. The guards are paralyzed, unable to shoot without hitting their own men. They can only watch in horror as the unarmed protagonist stares them down. Crush him, the lunatics yell, speeding up to ram him against the bus. But Tae-ha hears the engines roar and knows exactly what they're planning. He lifts his head, senses sharpened to a razor's edge, waiting for the perfect split second. Instead of panicking, Tae-ha executes a precise hop, using the ramming car as a launchpad to propel himself straight toward the bus. He crashes through the bus windshield, exploiting the guards' momentary confusion. Glass explodes everywhere as the predator enters the den. The soldiers freeze, their minds unable to process the intrusion. It is a fatal mistake. Tae-ha unleashes a hurricane of steel. He slashes through them with brutal efficiency, his blades severing heads from shoulders before they can even scream. He cannot. Tae-ha, meanwhile, judging by a flashback. How ironic, Shuri scoffed. It's not like we're knights in medieval Europe. She pressed the major. If the girl back in they're likely the sky. The drones hover menacingly. Another inside the enemy signal. The sea. Then he laughed. There's too many. But the jammer was used because of the sea. A friend. Suhayan. The major just. At first, it looked clear, but then points of light materialized from thin air, glowing brighter and brighter with terrifying intensity. Boom! A chain. Standing atop a skyscraper was Shuri. She acted as the ultimate decoy, her fingers dancing as she manipulated invisible razor threads. She ensnared the drone swarm in a deadly web, halting their advance instantly. With a graceful leap, she cleared the blast zone, triggering the threads to crush the machines into a fiery ball of self-destructs. Insik recoiled in shock. Who the hell is that? He demanded. Nothing like this had existed during the last Great War. Even her own allies were stunned by the display. Shuri apologized for the secrecy. This, she declared, is my true weapon. She knew they were shocked. While the others fought in the previous war, she had been far away, training in these arts to protect her father. Fate had made her late back then. But not this time. She was here to correct the mistakes of the past. With cold determination, she vowed to ensure those bastards never set foot in their territory again. Suhayan swelled with pride. He called out to Jasib, telling him to look at just how magnificent his daughter had become. The bald commander, Insik, lost his patience. Bring in the next wave, he roared. Overwhelm them with sheer numbers. Blow everything to hell. But as his soldier moved to obey, a massive shadow loomed over them. Crash! Something slammed into the rear of their command van with the force of a freight train. A mercenary shouted to Orang, "This is their command center." The giant confirmed the target. Inside the vehicle, The CEO's face went pale with terror as he recognized the behemoth. The human tank, Orang, locked eyes with the bald commander. "I'm taking you out first," he growled. Flashback to 10 years ago. A man asked his friend if he was serious about starting a gang. He argued that times were changing, it was smarter to build their own power than pay for protection. The major hesitated, reminding him he was still a soldier. But he admitted one truth: no one could fight like Jiseab. But Jiseab assured him this wasn't about mindless violence. It was just to make negotiations run smoother. With a charismatic grin, he asked, "So what do you think of the name Yaburi?" Back in the heat of battle, the enemy mercenaries panicked, wondering how this young had tracked them down. Soldiers screamed that Alpha Team had identified a threat, but Orang was already charging. He lowered his head like a battering ram, ignoring the hail of gunfire. "Stop aiming for his head," the captain screamed. "Shoot his legs." Too late. The tank grabbed his soldier and smeared him across the concrete wall. His partner froze, eyes wide, unable to process the brutality unfolding before him. In a blur of motion, the giant crushed the second mercenary, slamming him unconscious. High above, a sniper whispered into his comms, "Alpha threat in my sights." He admitted the big guy was a monster, but before he could pull the trigger, his body was instantly sliced to ribbons. It was Shuri. She sprinted across the rooftops like a phantom. Insik saw his sniper fall and cursed in pure fury. She radioed the team, voice calm. Another sniper neutralized. Suhayan praised the kill but kept his guard up. "Stay sharp," he warned. "There are likely more of them." Since the enemy didn't know Shuri existed, their snipers would be positioned for ground targets. And wherever the snipers were bunched up, that's where the drone controllers would be hiding. Grace chimed in over the comms, "I've got a lock on a probable location. Black van, public parking lot, opposite the community center." Shuri acknowledged instantly. "I'm on my way." But something stopped her cold. Down below, Orang had just taken a direct hit from a high-caliber round. Yet they didn't call him the tank for nothing. The man stood tall, not a single scratch on him. As he stalked forward, Orang declared, 20 years of bloodshed in this country. And there's only one way a mercenary survives. Inside the van, Insik swore he would butcher the girl, but he had to kill this monster first. Orang ripped off his coat, metal gleaming in the sunlight. He revealed a massive robotic arm and pointed it at the van. "I'm ending you right here, Baldi." Meanwhile, chaos erupted on the highway. A car smashed through the guardrail of a viaduct, miraculously landing upright on the road below. The director crawled out, falling to his knees before the protagonist. "You're insane," he screamed. "What does Vendetta want with me? Why are you doing this?" The man's eyes were cold as ice. "I told you," he replied, raising a blade. "I'm going to stab you once a day." Without hesitation, he drove the knife deep into the director's shoulder. "You actually asked if Tai was out of his mind to go this far over something so petty?" The protagonist pulls out his phone, his voice ice cold. Tracking the bastard abroad would be a hassle, so he is dragging him straight to the district right now. But the director sneers, insisting the clock has already run out. He assures him that by now, those streets are nothing but a graveyard. He declares with a twisted grin that he ordered his men to exterminate everyone. Children, the elderly, no discrimination, no survivors. He boasts that he dropped over 100 billion won on this operation, asking if the kid understands the scale of that. They were ordered to annihilate everything within the hour using bombs, missiles, or whatever means necessary. The protagonist's eyes darken. He speaks of the innocent souls who perished in the last war, crushed between the clash of two gangs. He claims the director still doesn't understand why the Reaper has come for him specifically. He states that there is nothing on earth deadlier than a man who has lost his family. People like that have absolutely nothing left to lose. And because they have nothing, they risk everything without a shred of fear. However, there is a breed even stronger than the desperate, those who still have a family to protect. The director freezes, flashing back to that day at the hospital. Taga says he is certain the man has seen those eyes before. The eyes of someone willing to do anything to shield their family, with a pain that tears through their lungs and a fury that incinerates their hearts. All trapped in shallow breaths that promise vengeance. People like that are unstoppable. And the one who forged them into monsters was none other than the director himself. Enough talk. The protagonist orders him to shut his mouth and follow him into the silence. But Inju sneers, challenging him one last time. Does he really believe concepts like family and revenge can crush the absolute power of money? Meanwhile, the battlefield explodes. The mercenary gapes at Hwarang, realizing he never imagined he was facing an Exoyang member, the 16th commander from the Great War. Hwarang weaves through the hail of bullets, shouting that the past is dead. In-6 swings his axe, warning him not to play humble. Everyone knows what that ranking implies. To be ranked within the top 20 of the Ouyang is to stand at the summit of national power. Suddenly, razor-sharp wires snap through the air. Sheer traps the bald giant in an inescapable web amidst the chaos. While cursing the girl, the man struggles, wondering what kind of hellish thread this is that refuses to break. She speaks his name, her voice dripping with ice. She knows he is the butcher who slaughtered the most people in her city. Cursing him, Sheer vows to take his head and silence the weeping of the survivors. Hwarang lunges forward to deliver the death blow. The CEO. This speed leaves the big guy, Jerome, gripping a still. She watches but Jerome, before he, the sight in-6 screen, never. He orders a total massacre while Jerome keeps the tank busy. Sheer steps in, shouting that he can't do something like that. Her voice distracts the big guy for a split second. Jerome seizes the opening, landing a devastating kick that launches the giant across the zone. Obviously, Hwarang skids, struggling to stop his momentum. Annoyed, he admits he didn't expect a skinny guy to throw 120 kilograms that far. But looking, the girl, Sheer not, it is a direct order. He has 5 minutes to finish this before the peacemakers arrive. If they are late, it is game over. However, he begs, but a massive fist interrupts the flirtation. Hwarang appears, landing a thunderous blow on the assassin and sending him flying into the distance. Hwarang's voice is firm as he commands her to leave the battlefield to him. Vowing to be right behind her, the girl simply nods, trusting his strength. She sprints instantly, legs pumping as fast as they can go. Hwarang grins internally, 1 second of hesitation, and he would have cursed her out for her own safety. He watches, but the tank is, the assassin, Jerome sighs, lamenting how dull his life has been lately. He misses the visceral crunch of bone and the thrill of a real death match. Hwarang doesn't flinch. He tanks the hit and roars back, unleashing a devastating flurry of strikes against the enemy's body. Jerome weaves, the impact, the memory of Hwarang, his mind, he remembered, but he vowed before the snap back to reality. Bloodied and broken, Hwarang screams, forcing his body to move one last time as he swings at his tormentor. Jerome dances away effortlessly. Hwarang admits to himself that he joined the gang to find the true meaning of strength. He saw however, true strength, shocking. He roars that he is the tank for a reason. He is the bulldozer that paves the road so his brothers can march to victory. For the first time, the smile wipes off the enemy's face. He didn't expect this level of grit. The weirdos Jerome flip Hwarang, a massive death looms but a shadow intervenes. Tae-ha appears from nowhere, slicing the falling wall in half and shielding his subordinate. The protagonist speaks calmly, telling Hwarang to rest. He thanks the big guy for holding the line. The king has arrived. Tae-ha but first, music. Tae-ha nods. He orders him to walk 1 block to the streetlight. A black car is waiting. I knew is in the Jerome. Tae-ha, the protagonist, with terrifying skill. Vendetta. However, Jerome lunges forward, his eyes burning with a maniacal thirst for adrenaline. Tia scoffs. With that, the air explodes as they exchange blows. Suddenly, thunderous explosions tear through the sky above. Suri is locked in, methodically shooting down every enemy drone in her sights. Exhaustion. Suddenly, Gray set. He declared, hearing though the roar of an engine cuts through the chaos. Inside the trunk lies the director. Even with his body broken and battered, Orion had stormed the lion's den to retrieve the target. Terror floods the hostage's eyes as he realizes what fate awaits him. The massive Orion grabs him by the face, handling him effortlessly like a rag doll. However, if Tia loses his duel, Orion knows he cannot face a monster like Jerome alone. He considers calling for backup from the others instead. With a cold once above him, they clash again, steel screaming against steel. Face to face, eyes locked in a death stare, they unleash another devastating flurry of strikes. Tia finds rising. He ripped with a sinister Tia, but his opponent back at the boy Gray asks. However, the truth is far more shocking. Even though he left, Tia is part of that royal bloodline. Calling him the true heir to the throne makes far more sense. Inside his mind, Tia flashes back to the very first time their paths crossed. It was Tia and Jerome were locked in combat when the madman fell onto the train tracks, barely holding himself up with his crowbar. Looking down, shock washed over Jerome's face as he realized his legs had been completely shattered. Mobilized and broken, he saw the train lights approaching fast. He looked up, eyes pleading for mercy from Tia, but the mercenary did nothing, certain that the train would finish the job. Yet, fate is cruel. Sometime later, a cargo plane soared through the skies. They exchanged blow for blow while in free fall, until Tia managed to slash his vest, cutting the parachute cord and stomping him down toward the earth. Yet, the monster didn't die that time either. On the contrary, Jerome seems to evolve, growing stronger with every brush with death. The madman cackles, taunting that Tia's strikes were insufficient, claiming victory comes down to a subtle difference in power. He has noticed the critical flaw: Tia's right-hand strikes are weaker than his left. Seizing the advantage, Jerome charges with blinding speed, shouting that Tia failed to kill him despite having multiple chances. Even with that last blow, the enemy lands a fiercely powerful strike that rattles Tia to his core. The protagonist realizes his right arm is trembling uncontrollably. The ghost of the fracture from his quest for revenge has returned. Taking advantage of that split-second distraction, the lunatic vanishes and reappears behind him, whispering doubts about whether someone of his caliber should really be hindered by an injured arm. Tia barely dodges the follow-up strike, while his opponent sneers that after spending time in this country, he is finally beginning to understand him. Jerome sneers, his voice dripping with malice. You have to be insane to think this hellhole isn't crawling with elite monsters. The city has been plunged into absolute anarchy ever since they slaughtered the president. Yet, Jerome proclaims that Tae-ha stands above them all. Why? Because Tae-ha is the only demon capable of pushing him to death's door and forcing him to evolve. With a savage roar, Jerome slams the tip of his crowbar into a massive water tank. Steel screams as he rips a jagged chunk free and hurls the heavy debris at his enemy. Tae-ha has absolutely zero time to react. Seizing the opening, the assassin launches himself into the air. He strikes with earth-shattering force, kicking up a massive dust cloud before touching down with eerie calm. But as the dust settles, his eyes widen in shock. Tae-ha is gone. How did the brat vanish? Rage vibrates through Jerome's body. He swears he saw the hit connect. Instinct screams, and he barely deflects a flying dagger aimed at his throat. Jerome laughs, mocking his opponent through the haze. You missed, Vendetta. You threw away your one chance to end this. But Tae-ha's voice cuts through the smoke, cold as the grave. Don't worry. This time, I'll make sure you stay down. The deflected dagger hasn't even hit the floor yet, but Tae-ha is already standing right in front of him. Jerome's mind reels in disbelief. Since when was he this fast? In a flash of silver, Tae-ha unleashes a slash so devastating it cleaves the very world around them in two. I'm just like you, Tae-ha whispers, his eyes burning. I've crawled back from hell, too. The strike lands home, ending the rivalry in an instant. Meanwhile, high above the chaos, Shuri sprints desperately across the rooftops, her heart pounding. Her radio crackles. This is the final wave of drones. She has to wipe them out fast and get back to base before it's too late. Suddenly, she skids to a halt. Below, two men are hauling a corpse through the shadows. Before she can hide, one of them locks eyes with her. Fear grips her, more enemies. But then, the man calls out her name. He claims they're from the Ouyang Special Forces. They are allies. They are acting under Captain Wan's orders. And just like that, the captain himself steps out of the gloom to confront Tae-ha. Wan wastes no time with pleasantries. I have orders to kill you, he states flatly. So, Tae-ha, what are you going to do about it? Tension crackles as the two warriors stare each other down. Tae-ha narrows his eyes. How did this guy find him? He clearly isn't one of Enyu's lackeys. Besides, a real assassin would have struck from the shadows. Showing his face means he has other motives. I thought you were special, Tae-ha scoffs, gripping his weapon. Turns out you're just another Ouyang dog. Captain Wan smirks, unimpressed, expecting a thank you. You should know we can't afford any more chaos on these streets. You clearly don't know the full story. Tae-ha shoots back. I wasn't the one who threw the first punch. But before the argument can explode, a chilling sound stops them. Behind Tae-ha, the maniac drone begins to rise like an undead zombie. Both warriors freeze, stunned into silence. Drome wipes blood from his mouth, grinning like a demon. Okay, that one actually hurt. Without hesitating, Tae-ha snatches his dagger and strikes. But the corpse twists away with unnatural agility. The madman yanks a grenade pin with his teeth. Catch you later, best buddy. He cackles, tossing the explosive. A blinding light engulfs the alley. Fighting through the flashbang, Tae-ha activates his enhanced vision, scanning the smoke for a heat signature. He spots a trail and steps forward to hunt the zombie down. But Captain Wan blocks his path. Wait, you need to maintain order here, Tae-ha. Tae-ha's patience snaps. He raises his dagger against the captain. Move. That zombie is first on my list. Clang! Hwan blocks the strike effortlessly. Tae-ha's eyes widen. This guy predicted the attack before he even moved. I can't track your ridiculous speed, Hwan admits, holding his ground. But it would be humiliating to fall for the same trick twice. The captain sighs, eyeing Tae-ha's wounds. Look at you. You're in no condition to fight. Why not try being kind for once? You always act tough, Hwan continues. But I see raw potential. You haven't even scratched the surface of your true power. Tae-ha realizes the truth. This man isn't just a soldier. He's a kingmaker within the gang capable of shifting the entire balance of power. They step back, creating distance. I noticed something, Tae-ha says, his voice low. For all your skill, you don't have the stench of blood on your hands. He tilts his head, calling the bluff. Am I right, Captain Wan? You've never actually taken a life, have you? Wan snaps, launching a fist, but Tae-ha vanishes into thin air. The captain freezes, sensing a presence behind him. Tae-ha is there, smiling. But the captain isn't done. He accelerates, matching Tae-ha's ghostly speed. I may not kill, Wan growls, but I've beaten men until they drowned in their own blood. Tae-ha's eyes widen. The sheer ferocity of the man is suffocating. Even so, Wan twists past Tae-ha's defense, whispering into his ear, Go to the abandoned building. 450 meters northwest, 3rd floor. It's the president's old hideout, Wan reveals. I can't kill you today, but if you go there, you'll find something worth your life. The captain turns to finish his sentence, but he's talking to the wind. Tae-ha has already vanished. Left alone in the dark alley, Wan snorts in frustration. I am so sick of that brat. Silence falls over the 3rd District once more. The Oyan Special Forces crackle over the radio, their command cutting through the static with a chilling ultimatum. Surrender immediately. Disobedience means death for every single one of them. The grim announcement echoes again as Insect cowers in the shadows, desperate to avoid the crosshairs. He curses under his breath, eyes widening at the sight of his own soldiers slaughtered on the stairs. Paranoia sets in as he wonders if the Oyan gang planted spies in their midst, turning their own tactics against them. Greg remains concealed in an adjacent room, voice trembling as he checks on the major, begging him to stay conscious. Though struggling for every shallow breath, Suyin hisses at the boy to lower his voice, warning that a single sound could give away their position. The radio buzzes again with terrifying news. The enemy has located the targets within the hideout. To make matters worse, the surrounding buildings are swarming with soldiers, turning the entire area into a death trap. A subordinate asks why they don't retreat, arguing they can't win against Oyan. But Insect snaps back, silencing him with a glare. Blinded by greed, the mercenary leader can only focus on the bounty, declaring that a golden opportunity like this comes only once in a lifetime. The major turns to the bald man, his voice grim as he realizes the mercenary intends to see this bloodbath through to the bitter end. The bald man claims that if they manage to kill Gizyab, Jerome will handle the rest. He arrogantly vows to slaughter the leader of Yabaru with his own 2 hands. But suddenly, Hans approaches him from behind. Fear freezes the mercenary in place as a heavy hand clamps over his mouth. The shadow reveals its true face. It was Quarry. His voice is a low growl as he asks if the man truly believes their lives are worth 10 billion won. Spinning around, the bald man sneers, mocking Quarry as nothing more than a walking corpse who should already be dead. But the giant doesn't flinch. He vows to make the mercenary spit out every drop of blood for the lives he took, landing a devastating punch to the chest that forces a massive geyser of blood from the leader's mouth. The sheer force of the blow is so overwhelming that it launches him straight out of the building like a ragdoll. The mercenaries in the opposite building watch in horror, but before they can react, razor-sharp wires materialize from thin air, strangling them where they stand. Shuri descends like a phantom, decapitating them in a single fluid motion. Meanwhile, Insect meets a gruesome end from the fall below. Fleeing the scene, the girl realizes the nightmare is finally over. 5 minutes later, she arrives at the coordinates the protagonist had given her. Upon entering the room, she freezes, confused by the gathering. At a makeshift table, the man calmly invites her to take a seat. The boy surveys the room, noting the heavyweights present, a representative from the 3rd District, an envoy from the Cheon-u Group, and, finally, a spokesperson from the Oyan gang. It seems all the key players have gathered on the same stage. The protagonist declares that the real game has begun. They are officially negotiating the district's redevelopment rights, ensuring everyone walks away with a piece of the pie. Building, feeling out as footsteps, Tae-ha smoothly offers his lighter, commenting on the late hour. Quinman chuckles, noting that the kid has finally started carrying his own smokes. The captain, however, the boy, vendetta as after facing the captain sometime as they enter the quite a Jappels, he reminds even the big man his appointment as vice president sent shockwaves through the underworld, proving he could conquer enemies without shedding a single drop of blood. He is a Yapil, Ingus, Seri boy, Taich, an outsider. The command, unable, there is a car waiting, Yapil barked. He ordered the disgraced director to scramble out of his sight. Ingus, Seri, Yap, Seri, her voice, Yapil, the old, you brought it, unless, Seri, that is not your decision to make, girl, Yapil countered. You accepted the terms, and you violated them. He dropped the delegate, trembling with rage. She realized the truth. He never intended to negotiate. I couldn't even say what I needed to. There has to be a spot. She turned to the protagonist, desperate for reassurance. Is this really part of the plan? He nodded calmly. Perfectly executed. Outside, the Ojang members reached their convoy. Yapil stopped abruptly. Cowards who flee at the first sign of defeat ride separately. Ingu bristled at the insult. I explained exactly what happened. I did what I had to do. I'm still young, he pleaded. What did you expect me to do against them? Yapil didn't even look at him as he got in, but the car didn't get far. A figure blocked their path. It was the protagonist. The luxury sedan rolled to a halt. The window lowered a fraction. What do you want now, kid? The protagonist leaned in. Now that both gangs are part of the same hierarchy, we must be careful not to cross certain lines. You just recovered your director, but Cheon-u Group recently lost its president. That makes you vulnerable. If the director were to disappear again, and the motive remained a mystery, the alliance would crumble. For someone who claimed he didn't need to negotiate with a stranger, you suddenly have a very good reason to listen. A spark of recognition flashed in Yapil's eyes. He replayed the meeting in his mind. The realization hit him. The kid wasn't waiting for a deal. He was waiting for Ingu's release to clear the board. He had underestimated the boy. This wasn't a foolish gangster. This was a player. And now, the game had changed. The old man's demeanor shifted instantly. He unlocked the door. There's an empty seat. Care to join me? The protagonist shook his head. We aren't friends yet. Let's just settle this business simply. Yapil chuckled, a sound like dry leaves. No traps, I promise. I just know an excellent cigar lounge. Time muttered from the background. That only makes things even more complicated. The tension is palpable, primarily because the chairman is notoriously picky about his cigars. He remarks that he heard the young man had been away from Korea for a while and demands to know where he has been hiding. Without missing a beat, Tae-ha replies simply that he spent his time in Italy. The old man strokes his chin, muttering that while he isn't an expert, the region Tae-ha mentioned is famous for a specific type of tobacco, though the name escapes him. But before the chairman can even finish his thought, Tae-ha slides into the car, cutting him off cold. "You should have led with that." Chairman Jeppel is visibly stunned by the assassin's casual disrespect. He notes that the SUV's speed limit is 31 miles per hour, but Tae-ha tells him to forget the rules and just step on it. Moments later, they arrive at the venue. A white-haired manager approaches immediately, presenting the specific cigars the gentleman usually smokes. In addition to the regulars, he has brought the special batch that was ordered. The chairman nods, noting he will enjoy them as always. The waiter wishes them a pleasant evening and turns to leave, but Tae-ha calls out, his voice sharp, asking if they have matches. The waiter confirms and asks if he should bring them over. It is a high-end establishment, reeking of wealth and serving incredibly expensive drinks. Tae-ha picks up the cigar, explaining this isn't a typical luxury smoke. It is a Kentucky blend, beloved by workers and elites alike, known for its considerable length. He snaps the cigar in half with a crisp sound, handing one piece to Chairman Jeppel. He explains the tradition. Sharing the halves gives it the name, the friendship cigar. Taken aback, the chairman accepts the half. He realizes the subtle message. A whole cigar takes an hour, but half takes 15 minutes. Tae-ha only intends to talk for 15 minutes. Silence hangs heavy between them as the smoke curls up. The old man admits, somewhat begrudgingly, that the flavor isn't bad. He then confesses that he couldn't care less about the fate of the 3rd District. Such trivial topics bore him. He finally reveals the true reason he agreed to this meeting. First, he claims Juan still lacks the finesse to handle situations of this magnitude. Second, he simply couldn't fathom how someone capable of facing down the royalty of Cheon-u ended up living in a dump like that. Tae-ha replies stoically that he nearly died back then. He assures the chairman that he is only breathing today because the people of that district saved him. He lays out his demand, guaranteed housing for the citizens until redevelopment is finished, and full relocation support for new apartments by Gangnam standards with 0 extra fees. Jeppel scoffs, stating that the construction costs alone will run upwards of 3 trillion won. If they offer that level of support, those families would walk away with 10 times their property's actual value. Tae-ha narrows his eyes, asking if they are there to negotiate or not, sensing the man originally wanted to probe his plans for Cheon-u's future. However, the old man denies that intention. He leans in, his gaze intense. His true interest lies in what Tae-ha knows about the committee. He begins to list the pillars of power. First, Cheon-u Corporation, the largest conglomerate in South Korea, controlling advanced industries and entertainment. But beneath, then their chain. This group is, since not their own. Hearing this, however, Jeppel assures him that isn't it. He smirks, claiming the boy already knows the right answer. He asks, he remembers. The chairman suddenly cuts in. Cheon-u got Jun-woo. He claims those were the words spoken the moment they acknowledged his strength. A man of this man emerged. Tae-ha, leaning back. Tae-ha deduced the old man. With that threat, Tae-ha meanwhile, one of the employees had asked Suk to send a fax there. As he calmly reads the message that arrived, his eyes go wide with shock at what is written. Meanwhile, music. He dialed the vice. Trembling, Puto relayed a fax confirmation stating that a proxy would be attending in Ingu's place. Back at the young master smirked, explaining it was simple misdirection. The same trick magicians use to fool the eye. By snap, he roaring, with eyes, steel screamed against steel. A storm of slashes erupted in the confined space. But the master deflected every single blow with terrifying ease. He tried. As the assassin raised his weapon for a killing blow, he froze. A cold blade was already pressing against his jugular. For a split in a flash, the young master smiled. Suddenly, the cabin, he taught. The assassin could only scream a curse in defiance. But the young master slammed him to the floor, pinning him with a blade to the throat. With a they tumbled unfazed before the boo with super even in seizing the master. In the gather, but the realization hit him. He knew Guangwu had ignored him on purpose, daring to betray the hand that fed him. The assassin's. As the venom took hold, the assassin used his final breath for one plea. Please, don't kill the boy. The master brought the unlit cigarette to his lips. Normally, I'd kill you both and leave my mark. Instead, but for your loyalty, doubt. The man in the glasses adjusted his frames, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. He had invited him here for one reason, to witness the execution personally. The silence was shattered by a vibration. Excellent. The man sneered, glancing at his phone. Successes just keep rolling in. It seems the young master has joined the dead. Without skipping a beat, he tossed the device across the table. President Beck, answer it. President Beck pressed the phone to his ear. The voice on the other line was ice cold. Confirm the boy's corpse, then dissolve it in acid until nothing remains. Beck hung up, his face impassive. I will retrieve the assassin, nameless. But the boss raised a hand. Why bother? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Dissolve them both. The air in the room turned heavy. A suffocating silence stretched between them. Understood. President Beck bowed. He turned on his heel and marched down the long, empty hallway. Alone in the corridor, he answered the ringing phone again. Proceed. But the voice wasn't his assassin. I was afraid you'd hang up, Beck. I'm glad I caught you. Beck froze in his tracks. His eyes widened behind his glasses. That voice. The young master was still alive. Why don't you come outside? The young dragon on the other end challenged. From the street below, the protagonist gazed up at the towering skyscraper. Beck's mind raced if the boy was breathing. Then Nameless was already a corpse. Composing himself, Beck forced a calm tone. I am truly relieved to hear that you are alive and well, young master. Cut the crap, the master snapped, his patience evaporating. Come down here now. Or do you prefer I climb up there and drag you out? Silence fell over the street. He stood like a statue, waiting for the prey to emerge from the shadows. The doors opened. President Beck stepped into the night air. If I intended to kill you, young Master Cheon, I wouldn't have bothered with a phone call. The protagonist scoffed, his hand hovering near his blade. Are you just stalling? Terrified you'll fail like last time? The young master stepped forward, his aura intensifying with every word. At first, I thought this was simple. My parents were slaughtered. I came back for blood. But then he paused, eyes burning. I decided to hold back. I wanted to hear your excuse before I ripped your throat out. Tell me, Beck Junsu, why? Why betray my parents? Why betray my grandfather who trusted you? You crave power, yet look at you. He gestured vaguely. Years later, and you're still just the president of Cheon-u Security. No promotion, no throne. You stabbed your masters in the back twice. First my grandfather, then my father. What was it all for? Beck smiled, a cold, philosophical glint in his eyes. Listen closely. A wild beast would gladly sacrifice its own life for its offspring. But his expression darkened. If that offspring is weak, if it falls ill, that same beast will snap its neck without a shred of hesitation. Beck lowered the phone, his gaze piercing. Do you feel betrayed? Don't overanalyze it, boy. The Cheon-u Corporation belongs to no single man. It is a living entity unto itself, a kingdom that must survive. My vote against your father, the late president, was cast for one single cause. I did it to protect Cheon-u. The call ended. The young master stared at him, unimpressed by the twisted logic. So, the boy's voice dripped with ice. My parents died for your corporate philosophy? His hand gripped the hilt of his weapon. I see now. Listening to you was a waste of time. We need to end this, don't you agree? Beck didn't speak. Instead, he made a strange, precise hand gesture. The young master frowned in confusion. Beck held his stance. Slowly, he raised one hand and clasped it over the other, a ritualistic signal. Asterisk, what is this? Asterisk, the protagonist narrowed his eyes. Asterisk, sign language, a secret code. Asterisk. Suddenly, a presence materialized from thin air behind him. A man with long hair stood there like a ghost, looking down with soulless eyes. Instinct, asterisk fast, asterisk, he leaped back, creating distance instantly. Who are you? When did you get there? In the distance, the long Beck smirked. He turned the two men, the scene shifted. The neon skyline of the city burned under the dark heavens, hiding 1,000 secrets. Elsewhere, a figure in dark, sir, the informant. Since Jinyu had aligned himself with Cheon-jin, Yang was backed into a corner, forcing him to unleash ruthless mercenaries. The real is, where's he? Boom, one mercenary grinned. The device was designed to drive shrapnel straight into the spine, triggered instantly by a single text message. Vice President, beneath and because the seating, but a shadow. Vice President, as that D-Day, confused, sudden, Cheon-u, it was, we're fanning, speak, director, watching, his eye on a dark, shirtless men danced in a trance, moving fervently to the rhythm of madness. Offer, far down, he is on the vice, Cheon-jin's gaze, but that was a lie, he hissed. The butcher who tortured them to death was Vice President Yang. I saw a flashback, a bound man screaming for mercy. I am not a traitor. We only served the late president. Yang stood back in the outside as the staff disbelief elsewhere. He eventually found Gwang-woo in a private room. The man but without hesitation, the young master asked the question that haunted him. Why didn't you run away? Gwang-woo merely offered a calm, enigmatic smile. Why stay? I believe, this blind stunned. Suddenly, a new squad captain, a murmur, the black team, it became, one of the, though they, but make no mistake, Director Ma saw him coming. Lower the blinds, he screamed. Seal the main door now. Hands flew to, but the young master stopped dead at the entrance. He didn't draw a weapon. He began to introduce himself. His voice boomed elsewhere. Tae-ha, he raised a hand, clutching a simple object. I am here to honor my grandfather's dying wish, and to claim my birthright as the heir of Cheon-u. He held a guard. The memory in the faction was more than just those who knelt at the gate that bloody day. The memory shifted to the terrifying rhythm of a shamanic ritual. The sheikh revealed the secret. I saw it all, he confessed. My father sent me to watch the vice president. I witnessed every sin. The order was absolute, speak or die. During the ritual, the vice president sought not just forgiveness, but the blessings of the heavens to become the new king. Then another. Jin Xiang laughed manically at the twist of fate. A final memory played. The chairman asking his executives to protect the company until his return. Head bowed with the boardroom beckoned. The whispers outside died instantly. The revelation struck the crowd like a physical blow. This young man was the blood and bone of Chairman Suyip-jin. Meanwhile, deep within the viper's nest, Cheon-jin strode down the corridor. His subordinates trailed him like shadows, mimicking his arrogant gait. A smirk played on the young director's lips. He walked with the swagger of a man who believed the throne was already his to keep. But elsewhere, Security Chief Yong-min felt a cold sweat prickle his skin. The atmosphere was suffocating, and confusion gnawed at his composure. The news of the vice president's betrayal didn't add up. Not when Yong-min remembered the man leading the black team during the bloody purge of the former. Loyalists. Target incoming. One of his men leveled a gun, voice trembling. Sir, why aren't we engaging? Shouldn't we be fighting? Yong-min hesitated, the logic of the situation escaping him. Finally, he nodded to his subordinate, survival instinct roaring over duty. Cheon-jin scoffed at the tension filling the air. Let the old dog bite. He told his men. The vice president's little rebellion changes nothing. We still outnumber them 3-1. We have to end this now, the chief insisted, desperation creeping into his tone. We must secure the council's vote right here. He knew the stakes. If they failed today, he would take the fall for everything, including the disastrous massacre at the annex. My, so noisy. A sharp, elegant voice sliced through the tension, freezing everyone in place. External Director Han-yoon sauntered in, eyes gleaming with amusement. Looks like a party. Yong-min whipped around, instantly recognizing the dangerous woman. Vice President Yang stepped forward, his voice like iron. I summoned Director Yoon urgently. This meeting cannot proceed without her. He dropped the bombshell. The young master is a living witness. He saw the yacht incident, and he survived the recent slaughter of the Jin family. Yang's eyes burned with intensity. If we link these facts to the Cheon-u Group, this isn't just business. It will be treated as an organized coup d'etat. Hearing the declaration, Director Yoon observed the scene, a subtle, knowing smile curling on her lips. Well then, she purred, accepting the chaos, I suppose I can lead the way. The boardroom is waiting. She adjusted her glasses, her tone shifting to professionalize. My duty is to ensure this company follows the rules. She turned to Tae-ha. Follow me, young master. The group stepped into the Cheon-u headquarters VIP elevator. The doors slid shut, sealing them in as they began their descent into the lion's den. The silence broke. You know, Vice President, Harun mused, I never pegged you for a loyalist. I always assumed you were just another wolf in a suit. She tilted her head. I thought your hunger for power was genuine. After all, you served the late President Soo-yip-jin with such ambition. Her gaze sharpened. Was that entire performance out of loyalty to a ghost? Or were you just biding your time, waiting for the heir to return from the dead? I was in the dark, Yang admitted, staring at the floor indicators. Even after the attack at the annex, I had no idea. He clenched his fist. I only learned the truth when Won-gu contacted me. Then I saw the bounty photo, and everything clicked. A look of relief washed over his aged face. That was the moment I knew. The young master was alive. Our long, agonizing vigil had finally been rewarded. As the elevator dinged, Tae-ha suddenly spoke up. Director Yoon, does the elementary school nearby still exist? Harun chuckled softly. Long gone, I'm afraid. Why do you ask? Vice President Yang sighed, the weight of the past heavy in his voice. Memories fade when the world changes. He continued, his eyes distant. When a workplace you've given 30 years of your life to disappears, it feels as if your very soul is being erased along with it. His expression hardened into steel. That is why I endured the shame. I will not let that madman burn Cheon-u to the ground. The doors opened. We are entering. The heavy doors swung open to reveal the Cheon-u Board of Directors. Every seat was filled, the air thick with anticipation. Director Kim, one of Cheon-jin's most loyal lapdogs, sat sneering at the table. Opposite him sat Director Jang, the vice president's ally, while Director Han remained a neutral statue, watching the power struggle unfold. Harun took command of the room. Gentlemen, I bring a key witness for today's emergency agenda. Tae-ha walked past the stunned faces. He stood like a sentinel behind the empty chair at the head of the table, staring down the board. At the far end, Cheon-jin leaned back, feigning boredom. But his eyes were locked on Tae-ha like a predator assessing a threat. The 81st Cheon-u Board of Directors meeting is now in session. The moderator announced from the podium. But before the gavel could fall for the first item, a hand shot up, slicing through the protocol. Executive Director Oh, a staunch supporter of Cheon-jin, slammed his palm down. What is the meaning of this farce? You drag a wanted fugitive into the sacred governance of Cheon-u? The moderator stammered, but Oh was relentless. He struck the table again, the sound echoing like a gunshot. That is exactly my point. He pointed an accusatory finger. This matter concerns the ambush at the annex. Important executives were slaughtered. Cheon-jin chimed in, his voice smooth as silk. Director Oh is right. Such violent incidents are a matter for the police, not the boardroom. Vice President Yang's voice boomed, silencing the room instantly. Watch your tongue, Director Oh. This man is no criminal. He is the biological son of Chairman Soo-yip-jin. His voice dripped with venom as he accused the vice president of grasping at straws. Desperate to claw his way up to the 36th floor, the pro-Cheon-jin faction erupted in jeers, but Tae-ha sliced through the noise. He began to recite a list of names, starting with Captain Yuri Nikolin of the Vartera Military Company. Rhythmic tapping echoed against the table. Tae-ha didn't stop, naming Vladimir Ilin, Harry Felt, and for other elite mercenaries. Memories of blood and steel flashed before his eyes. Of the 8 assassins who had stormed the yacht that day, 7 had already met their end at his hands. His gaze darkened as he explained the final piece of the puzzle. The last survivor, an Asian mercenary fluent in Korean, was the only one who had slipped through his fingers. But fate works in mysterious ways. Tae-ha had tracked him down right here within the Cheon-u Group. Director Tae-soo slammed his fist down, demanding immediate proof of such a ludicrous claim. Tae-ha's reply was ice cold and absolute. No, that wasn't his style. A sneer twisted the director's face. Why stop there? Why not claim you fought off 7,000 men while you're at it? Tae-ha's finger stopped tapping. A suffocating pressure, a murderous aura, flooded the room as he noted the director's fatal inability to read the atmosphere. He casually brought up the brutal death of In-soo Kim and the massacre of the Jin family in the NX, as if discussing the weather. Without missing a beat, he pointed out Director Hong's sudden disappearance. His eyes swept the room, asking how they dared to act righteous with so much blood on their hands. Director OJ stared back, rendered speechless by the suffocating truth. Silence was his answer. "I'll take that as my turn to speak," Tae-ha declared. Meanwhile, miles away, the neon lights of a commercial district illuminated a different kind of preparation. Kwang-soo stood in the shadows, the metallic click of a knife locking into place echoing softly. He adjusted the gun holster against his ribs, eyes focused on the mission ahead. He smoothed out his jacket, concealing the arsenal beneath. It was time to move. The moment his boot hit the pavement, a blue van screeched to a halt beside him. The sliding door threw itself open. A familiar voice rang out from the darkness. "Is that you, Kwang-soo? You look ready to start a war." Kwang-soo's guard lowered slightly. It was the townsfolk, the very people who had stitched him back together when he was at death's door. Sori, the former leader of the Yappa gang, flashed a grin. She and the broker crew were heading straight for Cheon-u, and there was an empty seat with his name on it. Kwang-soo hesitated, his expression grim. He warned them that this wasn't street brawling. One wrong move meant death for them all. Sori cut him off with a sharp wave of her hand. "We know Tae-ha's methods better than anyone," she retorted. "We know exactly what we're signing up for." Back in the suffocating boardroom, Tae-soo challenged Tae-ha again, asking if he actually had anything of substance to say. The young heir didn't flinch. He began a lecture on national law, specifically citing the revised Inheritance and Gift Tax Act. He dismantled their confidence, explaining Article 1, a clause designed to protect national wealth by exempting specific core assets from crippling inheritance taxes. His voice was precise. Under this revision, assets like stocks and bonds are tax-exempt when transferred directly to blood relatives. Then came the killing blow. He revealed that this convenient law was passed exactly 2 months before the assassination attempt on the yacht. Tae-ha connected the dots. The 28.5% stake held by his grandfather and father had been swallowed whole by the late president, Guho Jin. Tae-soo interrupted, desperate to regain control. "What is your point? That law applies to everyone, not just the Cheon-u Group." Suddenly, Vice President Yang stepped forward, his voice booming. "That is enough, Tae-soo." The director spun around, eyes wide with shock at the sudden insubordination. Yang placed his hands flat on the table, commanding authority. He recounted the formation of the emergency committee following President Seok-ho Jin's death and the subsequent purge of the legal team. Guho Jin had seized the presidency in the chaos. Tae-ha's voice cut in, asking the room to consider exactly how long that takeover took. The answer hung heavy in the air. 1 week. It took mere days after President Seok-ho Jin's funeral for the power shift to complete. He reminded Tae-soo of his place. He was only sitting in that chair because his superiors had been conveniently removed. Tae-soo slammed the table, his face turning purple with rage. Tae-ha leaned back. "In Suki, he can, and when I, finally, the name direct, but Cheon, a memory, Tae-ha back in the their mission." Tae-ha's voice, tension spiked. Yet, Tae-ha didn't let the evidence, it showed the response, the revelation. Tae-ha drove. His logic was, the atmosphere, support came, VP, he warned that, panic, but amidst, she turned her, suddenly, Director Tae, but Chong-jin, he launched a counteroffensive, confronting him directly. "Who murdered In Soo Kim? Who spilled the blood of my allies and ambushed the village?" His knuckles turned white as he gripped his cane. He pressed on, his voice rising. "Who killed my father? Who wounded me? Tell me who is the real culprit here." "Hand," he questioned for one, a realization. Music's, he didn't, he accept, then, and he went for the declaration, regaining the air smile. He laid out his reasoning. He played but the board out not whispers after a long. Tae-ha jumped. The accused, Director G.S. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. Before anything else, they needed to verify if this so-called heir was even eligible to hold company shares, let alone lead them. A nervous Director Gia didn't. The horrific, it was a trap. Then came, none survived. Back in the boardroom, the tension was suffocating. Yet, Jin simply tilted his head, asking calmly where the proof was hiding. He laughed it off. Director *thud. Jin's cane struck the floor, silencing the room. He asked if they really believed he would wipe out his entire lineage, just because they posed a threat, spreading that they truly. Meanwhile, that expression, it was to calm. Jin's denial was smooth, almost rehearsed. It sent a chill down Yang's spine. Yang knew danger, but Yang raised his hand, his voice steady. He agreed with Director Jia that investigations took priority over power. But Director but Jin what he played his vice pre. Furthermore, Jin dismissed. Yang didn't blink. He just stared into the abyss of Jin's ambition, silence stretching between them like a taut wire. The battlefield was set, the room, but a time meant a ray vote, and that made no sense for Jin, unless betrayal was in the air. Someone was about to switch sides. All hands the count, but then shock. Yang Piao's voice trembled. He pulled a small, sinister detonator from his pocket. He wasn't a traitor by choice. He claimed he had discovered the vice president's true nature. Yang, the terrible, it was a directional mine. He remembered the briefing, designed to focus shrapnel in a kill zone, waiting for a single signal to unleash hell. Back in the Tae-ha, but the terrifying truth surfaced. Explosives had been rigged beneath every single seat assigned to the Heir supporters. Disbelief, the traitors. Yang finally understood. Those weren't questions, they were threats against Director Pio, who now wept while clutching the detonator. Sensing with a trembling hand, Director Pio pressed the button. The explosives beneath his former allies erupted in a deafening blast. Then came the order to fire. A crimson spray painted the meeting room windows from the inside out. Chaos reigned supreme. Yet, the man at the center of the storm stood motionless, calm as a statue even as blood and screams filled the air. Through the smoke, Myong-gil stared at the hellscape surrounding him, his mind unable to process the slaughter. Surrounded by the blood-soaked floor, the moderator's voice cut through the carnage. Director Zhang had secured the majority with 7 votes. The board officially declared him the new president. The gavel struck like a death knell. The lifeless bodies of the vice president and Director Choi lay still in the ruin. The victor rose, wiping blood from his cheek. He sneered at the corpses and muttered that cockroaches truly could hide anywhere. Masked in blood, Tae-ha turned. He screamed the new president's name with raw, unbridled fury. Tae-ha rose to his full height, facing his nemesis across the blood-soaked conference room. He demanded to know how a human could commit such a massacre in broad daylight. The monster merely shrugged, claiming innocence and insisting Director Pio acted alone. He sneered, remarking on the sheer stupidity of anyone daring to poke a sleeping bear. Tae-ha commanded his people to rise. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Director Yang launched herself forward. She screamed in rage, furious at being dragged into this nightmare. The target watched her approach with an arrogant smile. Suddenly, Du-han materialized, catching the director's wrist and halting her strike in midair. She spat at him to let go, calling him nothing more than an unleashed dog. He retorted coldly, telling her she was gravely mistaken about who actually pulled the trigger. Seizing the distraction, Tae-ha vaulted over the table. The young master soared through the air, aiming straight for the throat. Without even turning his head, the man finished his sentence, asking if their anger wasn't being wasted on the wrong person. Before the strike could connect, Du-han intercepted. A brutal kick to the chest sent Tae-ha flying back. The impact was devastating, hurling the young man all the way to the far side of the conference room. Yang didn't hesitate. She charged at Du-han, who ducked effortlessly. Straightening up, she glared at the duo, accepting the reality of the fight. She stated there was no need for reports. She would crush them right here and now. Across the room, Tae-ha struggled to his feet. He agreed. This ended today. He pulled a hidden card from behind his back, declaring the time was now. Suddenly, the vice president stirred, trying to call out to the young master. Broken and bleeding on the floor, the vice president asked if Tae-ha was unharmed. Tae-ha remained silent, eyes fixed on his fallen ally. Meanwhile, the villain barked orders into his phone to alert building security. The narrative was set. Blamed Tae-ha and the loyalists for a terrorist attack in the conference room. Security Chief Yeo-min received the command to liquidate all survivors. For a heartbeat, he hesitated. Suddenly, a blow struck one of his men, catching the entire squad off guard. A rogue guard stepped forward, declaring that the war had officially begun. Back in the room, Tae-ha watched the chaos unfold in silence. Gazing at the bleeding vice president, the young master calculated his next move. He realized the enemy had an escape route, and waves of reinforcements were already en route. Opposite him, the traitor waved a mocking goodbye. Tae-ha's grip tightened around his weapon until his knuckles turned white. The target watched him, anticipating the desperation. Tae-ha knew he had to kill him today, or he would never get another chance. Memories flooded his mind. The day he was asked to take the throne of the Cheon-u Group. The sacred vow he made to his grandfather, to inherit the company and protect the legacy at all costs. Finally, the image of his loyalists waiting for their young master's return burned in his eyes. The flashback fades, and Tae-ha's eyes harden with cold resolve. He is ready to kill. But just as he moves to strike, the vice president grabs his arm, urgency gripping his voice. "We have to move now." The man yanks Tae-ha closer, his tone dropping to a desperate hiss. "We need to vanish from this sector immediately." The ally stares at Tae-ha, eyes wide with shock, that faint smile on the young master's face. It's the only thing anchoring him to reality. "You're right," he breathes. "We can make it out." Tae-ha flashes a sharp, knowing smirk. Across the room, his enemy watches him like a predator that just realized its prey has teeth. Glancing back, the opponent declares that love is a lie 3 times over. His aura flares as he vows, "Next time we meet, I will crush you." Tae-ha's grin widens, dangerous and mocking. "Too bad." He shoots back. "There won't be a next time for you." Shadows swallow them as Tae-ha and the vice president slip into the dark corridor, leaving the confrontation behind. Tae-ha points toward the stairwell. Elevators are death traps. But the vice president shakes his head, eyes gleaming with a secret plan. "No. Trust me, the elevators are our way out." Tae-ha frowns, skeptical. "Are you insane? They'll have a kill squad stationed on the stairs, but the elevators." "Exactly," the ally cuts in, a cunning edge to his voice. "That's why I ordered the elevators cleared and prepped beforehand." "What do you mean?" Before Tae-ha can finish his question, a chime echoes. The steel doors slide open. The realization hits Tae-ha, even with his god-tier combat skills. Taking on the entire Cheon-u security force alone would be suicide. But as the doors part, it becomes clear. The enemy isn't the only one who prepared an army for this chaos. Inside stands Vu Kim, calmly polishing his weapon. "You're not fighting alone anymore, young master. The legendary head of the American branch's black team has arrived. Apologies for the delay." "Let's roll," Vu Kim commands. Tae-ha stares at him for a beat, a silent understanding passing between warriors. Outside the tower, police swarm the perimeter, pushing back the media frenzy. "Show's over. Move back," they announce to the crowd. Heir reporter shouts, shoving against the barricade. Why is security locking down the main entrance? What are they hiding inside? Asterisk boom. Asterisk a tremor from within the building snags Yeom-mun's attention. Beside him, a subordinate freezes. "Sir, did you hear that?" Chaos erupts in the main lobby. It's all-out war as two elite security factions collide in a storm of violence. Yeom-mun roars, "Spread out. Hold the line." The air fills with the sound of breaking bone as Cheon-u's guards crash against the elite black team. Azra, leader of Black Team Unit 2, grinds his teeth in frustration. "We're too slow. Do not let those bastards get past us." He can't believe the audacity. They actually declared war right inside the company headquarters. Asterisk bang. Asterisk bodyguard Yun-kwang fires a warning shot into the ceiling, silencing the immediate area. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" In the heat of the crossfire, a bullet tears through a black team operative's hand just as he reaches for his comms. Blood sprays, and the radio clatters to the floor. The grazed fingers refuse to cooperate. He's cut off from reinforcements. Gritting through the pain, the wounded soldier screams, "Push forward." A subordinate steps up, eyes blazing with resolve. "I'll clear a path." Sir Azra nods. "Go." Without hesitation, the man sprints into the kill zone. Bullets raining around him like hail as he charges the front line. Impacts shudder through his body, but he doesn't fall. He becomes a living shield, allowing his comrade to break through the enemy defense. The path is open, Azra bellows. "All units, charge." Simultaneously, Eric Kang, leader of Unit 4, unleashes his own devastating assault. Suddenly, Shinwoo security swarms Eric, electric batons crackling with malice as they surround him. But Eric weaves through the strikes like smoke, untouchable. Seeing an opening, Azra rallies his men, get them, support Eric, and dives into the fray. Action music intensifies. Eric Kang doesn't stop. He carves a path down the hallway with terrifying speed. Asterisk clang, asterisk sparks fly as Yeom-mun intercepts him, blocking Eric's blade with heavy steel. You should have stayed retired, old man, the security chief sneers. Eric smirks, eyeing Yeom-mun's scar. Been a while, still missing that eye, I see. Suddenly, sirens wail. A robotic voice booms over the PA system. Emergency. Large-scale terrorist attack detected. All personnel proceed immediately to the nearest safe room. This is not a drill. High above the chaos on another floor, a blade sings through the air, slicing through Shinwoo guards with surgical precision. Bodies hit the floor. The vice president steps out of the shadows, flanked by Gray and Suri. Vu Kim checks the scene. The staff are all home. That announcement was baked to flush us out. Tae-ha surveys the empty corridor, unimpressed. Where are the guards? For a trap, this is pathetic security. The vice president adjusts his glasses. They panicked. Most of their forces are downstairs trying to contain the media circus. Vu Kim nods. Hacking the council's private elevator paid off. We skipped the kill zone and hit the executive lobby on the 11th floor directly. Now for the pincer maneuver, Vu Kim explains. We take the two emergency stairwells on opposite sides. We descend from both flanks and crush the enemy before they even know we're here. Tae-ha realizes the gamble. If we had taken the main lifts under normal circumstances, it would have been a death sentence. Precisely, the vice president agrees, a cold light in his eyes. Chongjin started a war, but he forgot to bring a strategy. With the strategy as they descend, the vice president. Furthermore, a memory. The motive is. He adds that Vi Kim, the vice, but Tae-ha. Meanwhile, the new president sneers at the excuse. He can't even threaten to cut the man's pay. There is nothing left to take. The duo Chongjin, Junsu, but as the assistant watches, Chongjin clutches the keys like a lifeline. He has finally done it. He turns to Junsu, eager to claim the president's legendary office. However, Chongjin does. Junsu, the first decree, his demand elsewhere, with a brutal, the young, he knows it, yet, steel screen, one hit, the different, broken, the time, he argues, Junsu, he drops, Junsu, silent, after a long, with a voice, but then, back in the chaos, the gunner, in the neck with a bone, he announces, he unleashed a chaos, watching from, baffled, as bullet, elsewhere, in a blood-soaked corridor, Tae-ha surged forward, driving his blade deep into a guard's spine. He called out to Vice President Yang, noting they were close. But he never expected the Shinwoo Corporation to have a private army this heavily armed. The vice president grimly explained that the Yangmu military project was supposed to be scrapped, but Pyo Won-ho had secretly kept the beast alive. When Tae-ha asked about the security chief, his ally's reply was chillingly simple. The man was not human. He was a monster. They needed to hurry and provide backup. Suddenly, Tae-ha realized the trap hall security forces were concentrated on the first floor, herding them like cattle. His phone buzzed, cutting through the tension. He answered, his voice steady despite the carnage. On the other line, Gray noted the cacophony of battle and demanded to know their current floor. Surveying the destruction, Tae-ha warned him to stay away, insisting it was a suicide mission. Unfazed, Gray replied that his operative had already made contact, leaving Tae-ha bewildered. At that exact moment, O'Seal strolled into the main lobby, humming a cheerful tune amidst the impending violence. Grinning like a Cheshire cat, he dashed for the exit, declaring that the timing was absolute perfection as his hand slammed the door release. The glass doors slid open, and he peered outside to where his reinforcements were waiting in the wings. Seeing the breach, the security team roared to block the exit. But in a flash, O'Seal's men were flattened instantly by the arrival of Pyo Won-ho. The Mad Tiger mocked them, asking if they were quitting already, and reminding them that company policy required a 1-month notice. The opponent scoffed, replying that they weren't leaving. But it seemed the Mad Tiger had forgotten a crucial detail. Heo Tae-ha paused, confused, just as the roar of a high-performance engine grew deafening. A blue van smashed through the lobby entrance, plowing straight into the Mad Tiger. The massive impact launched Heo Tae-ha backward, sending him tumbling down the escalator. The driver's door kicked open. A man stepped out, weapon in hand, sighing that he had never wanted to set foot in this cursed company again. Gwang-soo, the former co-president of security, surveyed the scene, noting with disdain that absolutely nothing had changed in this hellhole. Oh-sil whistled, praising the impeccable timing, while Gwang-soo simply asked if his dramatic entrance seemed deliberate. Twirling a knife, he replied with dripping sarcasm, asking what kind of fool plans a return to a company that had already kicked him to the curb. The sudden arrival of a third party left the security team stunned, wondering if a new enemy faction had joined the fray. Beside them, Jang Gwang admitted he didn't recognize the newcomer. Suddenly, the tripod-mounted machine gun roared again, focusing its rage on the van. Gwang-soo didn't hesitate, diving behind a reinforced couch as bullets shredded the air where he had just stood. Rising from the debris, Heo Tae-ha wiped blood from his lip, realizing who had crashed the party. He sneered, identifying the man as his former superior, the one fired for backing the wrong horse. The visitor corrected him calmly, stating he preferred the title of the legalist who resigned with his dignity intact. The revelation hit the allies like a thunderclap. They stood frozen, unable to believe this man was the legendary Gwang-soo. He was the myth who had built the building's entire security fortress, alongside Chairman Jeon-woo himself. Just then, Ryu Kim and his squad burst into the lobby, whizzing at the sheer scale of the mess and the bodies piling up. One of the newcomers turned to Oh-sil, asking if the control room was secure. Ignoring him, Gwang-soo eyed the group, demanding to know who these brats were. Oh-sil assured him they were assets, revealing that one was a top-tier data broker. Then came the bombshell. He added that the other was trained as the successor to the Yeon family. The revelation left Gwang-soo speechless, while Ryu Kim confirmed the control room was in the basement. The leader of Group 2 stated he knew the path, signaling the real operation was about to begin. Piono stared coldly at the scene, questioning where these amateurs had come from before barking a ruthless order to wipe them all out. But the moment the security team raised their weapons, Wang Yu blurred into motion, seizing a guard's wrist with an iron grip. He shoved the man back, correcting his stance mid-fight and warning him that such sloppy footing couldn't handle the recoil. A split second later, his fist slammed into another guard's face, shouting for them to hurry up because the target was close. It wasn't just a fight, it was a lesson. Wang Yu dismantled the guards one by one, criticizing their posture while knocking them unconscious. In the blink of an eye, the entire security squad lay groaning on the lobby floor, utterly defeated. Rubbing his neck, Wang Yu scoffed, remarking that whoever trained these guys did a pathetic job. Witnessing the devastation, Eric Kang realized the game had changed and ordered his men to charge, just as Piono's weapon clicked empty, leaving him cursing in frustration. Wasting with lightning trapped the moment amidst Wang Yu, the veteran. Despite his skill, the Mad Tiger's blade found its mark, slicing open a gash on Wang Yu's arm. Skipping the pleasantries, the Group 2 leader recognized his former supervisor, but questioned the sanity of meeting so openly. Wang Yu Azra, the former supervisor, swirled his drink, stating simply, "Of course, that wasn't the original intention." However, his tone darkened as he added that he wouldn't rule out the possibility, prompting Azra to ask for a warning before hell broke loose. Wang Yu then pressed for intel on Pio, only to learn that the man had taken over his former position at the Cheon-u Group. His expression hardened as he asked if Azra remembered the incident in the Middle East involving 16 hostage tourists. The other man nodded grimly, recalling that every single hostage had ended up dead. Without skipping a beat, Azra dropped the bombshell. Piono was the one behind the massacre. The truth left the veteran stunned into silence. The Group 2 leader revealed the horrific details. The Mad Tiger had slaughtered everyone, terrorists and hostages alike, and vanished with the ransom. Back in the present, fury fueled Wang Yu's attack, unable to fathom that Junsu would recruit a butcher like this. While weaving through strikes, Heo confirmed that Junsu had personally retrieved him from his hiding spot in Oman. He sneered, adding that the leader had a very specific justification for unleashing a monster. As their weapons locked in a shower of sparks, Heo roared that Cheon-u needed absolute power, no matter the cost. But the force of the collision was overwhelming. Wang Yu's strike shattered the Mad Tiger's knife into jagged shards. Holding the broken hilt, Heo stared in disbelief while Wang Yu sat on the floor, admitting he had only been trying to avoid a death match until now. Slowly rising to his feet, Wang Yu's aura changed, declaring that, unfortunately, Heo would have to die today. The narrative spirals back into the past, to a desolate camp in the Middle East where terrorists held their captives. Through a grainy computer screen, the terrorist leader announced that the Korean government had failed to pay up. He raised the price to $50 million for the 16 hostages, threatening to execute one person every hour if they refused. The demand sent shockwaves through the government negotiators, who remembered the original price was only $10 million. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out inside the negotiation room, making the two men jump in terror. Following the shot, the leader's partner took over the feed, demanding $50 million for the 15 remaining survivors. This nightmare had begun when Korean missionaries were kidnapped in a restricted zone, forcing the state's hand. The negotiation team was escorted by the Red Team Special Forces, and standing among them was Heo, the future Mad Tiger. Panic set in as one negotiator stammered that his superiors would never authorize anything over $20 million. His partner argued back, insisting it was their moral duty to convince the government to bring the civilians home. But from the shadows, the soldier watched with utter disdain, his scoff making the negotiators turn to see who dared interrupt. Pyongwan didn't bother with cover. He raised his weapon boldly, scoffing that he refused to let the taxpayers' hard-earned money go to waste. But his muzzle wasn't aimed at the terrorists. He sneered, declaring that every single soul in this room was nothing but a waste of good oxygen. The breaking news that night was catastrophic. Reports claimed the high-stakes negotiation had spiraled into a bloody, fatal skirmish. It was a massacre. Hostages, terrorists, and negotiators were all wiped out. The only pulse left beating belonged to a lone survivor from the Red Team. To make matters worse, the account holding the $20 million ransom, it had vanished into thin air without a trace. 6 months later, in a lavish villa in Oman, the survivor basked in paradise. Pyongwan smirked, confident the world had long forgotten his sins. But his peace shattered instantly. Junsu and Azra stood before him. Pyongwan taunted them, asking if Cheon-u security had come begging for their loose change. His arrogance flared. He bragged that an entire den of terrorists couldn't kill him. So what chance did Cheon-u's lapdogs have? The leader of Group 2 stepped forward to crush him, but Junsu raised a hand. "Stand down," he ordered calmly. "I'll handle this." The moment they moved, the air exploded. They clashed with such devastating force that the shockwave shattered every window in the room. The Mad Tiger lived up to his monster reputation. Yet, watching from the sidelines, Azra realized this wasn't just a brawl. Junsu had a hidden agenda. With a blur of speed, Junsu clamped his hand around Pyongwan's throat. He wasn't struggling. He was coldly analyzing his opponent's limits. Pyongwan's eyes widened in terror. Even after that intense exchange, Junsu's breathing remained perfectly steady. "What the hell are you?" he gasped. Junsu's voice was ice cold. "Why did you sabotage the negotiation on purpose?" The question left Pyongwan paralyzed amidst the debris. Junsu pressed on. "If you just wanted the $20 million, you could have snatched the cash before the talks even started." The Mad Tiger scowled, still not getting it. "I couldn't stand it," he roared. "Watching those incompetent clowns try to negotiate made me sick." He laughed maniacally, calling them fools for thinking money solved everything. He claimed he saved Korea from global embarrassment. Junsu just offered a faint, chilling smile in response. Junsu extended a hand, his decision made. "In that case," he declared, his eyes gleaming, "you're exactly what I need. You're hired." The memory faded, snapping back to the grim present. Tae-ha and his team stood in a blood-soaked hallway, surrounded by the corpses of the guards. Vice President Yang broke the silence. He explained that when the late President Seok-jin brought Junsu to Cheon-u, his loyalty was absolute and unmatched. But that bond shattered 18 years ago. Young continued gravely. Roughly a year before the tragedy on the young master's yacht, confused, Tae-ha pressed for answers. What happened back then? The vice president shook his head, admitting the full truth remained a mystery. He did returning to. Then came the nightmare. 1 year later, the yacht incident struck, and conveniently, Junsu the president's shadow was nowhere to be found. Wookim's, he dropped the pieces. Wookim's, we know the real Junsu, the man spat. To the world, he looks like a dedicated protector and mentor. But that's a mask. That mentor broke us down, he continued. He reconstructed us, pushing our bodies and minds beyond the brink of insanity. He forged a loyalty so fanatical that the unit answered only to him, Wookim confessed. Not even the president could command us. Their faith in him had been absolute. But Wookim's voice trembled with rage as he exposed the truth. To Junsu, we weren't even human. Cheon-u security was just his laboratory, he snarled. A ranch where he bred his herd, sacrificing us all to create the ultimate warrior. The perspective shifted to Wookim, explaining the terrifying weight behind the phrase Cheon-u is Junsu. It wasn't a slogan, it was a warning. Make no mistake, Wookim. But hear this, Wookim added darkly. If that offspring becomes weak or fails him, that same beast will snap its neck without a shred of mercy. Absorbing the horror, Tae-ha paused on the staircase. He turned back, his gaze locking onto his battered team. I'm sorry, Vice. He blocked but Tae-ha, the memory of his late parents flooded his mind, reinforcing a single truth. Turning his back on others was never an option. With the image of his godfather burning in his mind, he declared that this second chance at life wasn't given to him so he could live as a coward. His eyes blazed with resolve. No one had ever taught him to abandon the people he called family. Pure killing intent radiated from him. If Jinsu dared to threaten Si and Gu, Tae-ha would end him personally. He looked at them one last time. Just buy me a little time. Hey everyone, hope you are feeling the intensity of this masterpiece. I am absolutely hooked. If you are dying to see what happens next, smash that subscribe button and drop a like. Catch you in the next chapter, guys. The scene shifts to a distant memory. Young Tae-ha announces his return, but his mother's voice trembles. She rushes over, terrified, asking if the bullies had targeted him again. She pulls him into a desperate embrace, tears in her eyes. She begs to transfer schools, terrified of how his father might react to the violence. She asks why he insists on enduring such hell. But the memory fades, snapping back to the brutal present. One of the men stares at Tae-ha, disbelief in his eyes. Are you really planning to take down Jinsu? Tae-ha explains his logic. With the enemy forces concentrated on the first floor, this creates a chaotic opening, their one and only shot to neutralize the target. He implores them to hold the line, just a few moments. He promises, on his life, that he will return once the deed is done. The blue-haired operative scoffs at his confidence. He points to the door, reminding him that the first floor and certain death is just steps away. Standing at the precipice of battle, Tae-ha holds up his hands. 10 minutes. That is all I need. The operative steps closer, his gaze intense. Do you know why we became loyalists? He reveals the grim truth. They believed it was the only path to stop the tyrant Jinsu. Sensing the tension, the older veteran shouts out, "Beh." He explains their dark origin. They were the rejects of the Special Operations Division, forced into the shadows of Team Black just to survive. Bui's voice drops low. They were shipped overseas for the dirtiest missions, isolated until their families became nothing but distant memories. And that was the trap. They eventually discovered the horrific truth. Most of their loved ones had been silenced. Tragic accidents arranged to protect the chairman's secrets. Bi clenches his fist. His desire to see Jinsu fall rivals anyone's. But he shakes his head. Now is not the time for a suicide run. Tae-ha cuts him off sharply. It is now or never. Bi grabs him, desperate. How can a kid defeat a monster who has ruled the underworld for decades? Even Bi barely survived him at the annex. Silence hangs in the air. Tae-ha looks him dead in the eye. I can do it. He admits his past mistake. He was reckless before, caught off guard while chasing a fleeing enemy. But this time is different. Give him 10 minutes in a one-on-one duel, and victory is certain. Tae-ha places his hands firmly on Bui's trembling shoulders, grounding him. He asks for one thing, faith. Tell me you believe in me. Buy me those 10 minutes, and I will ensure Jinsu is removed from this world. The stares, torn between logic and hope. The older veteran breaks the silence, marveling at the audacity. Then he nods. Go, young master. We will be waiting, he declares. Come back to us. Without looking back, Tae-ha turns and sprints up the stairs, charging toward destiny. Bill whirls on the vice president, incredulous. Are you insane? Sending him back into the fire after everything we went through? The vice president sighs, looking weary. He admits age has dulled his memory. He regrets forgetting the most important thing, the kind of indomitable spirit the young master has possessed since he was a child. Meanwhile, chaos erupts on the 11th floor. In the executive lobby, the battle is already raging. A loyalist charges with killing intent, but his strike is stopped effortlessly mid-air. The opponent merely mutters, "How strange." With a brutal motion, the attacker is slammed into the floor, the impact cracking the tiles. The older man sneers, questioning their title of loyalists when they likely never even met the late chairman. But Ledger, captain of Team Black's Group 5, rises from the debris. Jinsu looks down at him, amused. Is young Master Tae-ha really worth all this blood? Is he worth throwing your lives away? He mocks them, asking if containing him on this floor is worth the price. Ledger spits out blood. The alternative is letting him descend to slaughter everyone. So yes, he is worth it. With renewed fury, the squad tightens their formation, preparing to rush Jinsu all at once. A smirk plays on Jinsu's lips. He recalls the rumors that, as a child, the terrifying young master was once a victim of school bullying. Back on the staircase, the vice president reveals the truth to Bi. His parents refused a private education, insisting he grow up like a normal child. He recounts the turning point, when Tae-ha was in the 3rd grade. A 6th grader extorted his lunch money. Realizing the rich kid had deep pockets, the bully targeted him relentlessly. Every single day became a nightmare. The more Tae-ha resisted, the more violent the beatings became. Until one day, the boy did something unexpected. He drew a massive circle in the dust of the schoolyard for all to see. He stood in the center and called out the 6th grade tyrant, demanding a one-on-one duel every single day. Bi asks eagerly, did the young master win? The vice president shakes his head. The bully never even showed up. Instead, the coward would corner him elsewhere, continuing the intimidation. And Tae-ha? He never raised a fist again. He simply took every hit, enduring the pain in silence. The vice president demands answers about the past, but the scene shifts back to the chaos of the lobby. The real battle has begun. Steel shatters against the floor. Ledger is left holding nothing but a broken hilt, yet he braces for impact. But Jinsu launches himself like a predator, giving no quarter. In a painful memory, his godfather's voice trembles. He begs the boys to transfer schools, pleading for the violence to finally end. His mother's eyes are filled with tears. She questions why he insists on enduring such brutal bullying when he could just walk away. Tai's reply is simple. The aggressor crossed a line, insulting his friends with words too vile to repeat. He looks his mother in the eye, asking for one thing, simply believe in him. Back in the blood-soaked present, Jinsu creates distance. He stares down the remaining guards, a lone wolf amidst the carnage. Tai's voice echoes from the past with a solemn promise. If they trust him, he will deliver. He swears to always emerge victorious, no matter who stands in his way. Jinsu stands motionless in the center of the hall, an immovable object. Suddenly, Tai materializes on the battlefield, a gleaming blade in his grip. Ledger spins around, panic in his voice. This reckless rival was never part of their extraction plan. He sprints toward the young master, screaming that the mission is to keep him safe. But Tai is a blur, lunging forward faster than the eye can follow. Ledger freezes, stunned as Tai ghosts past him. The boy's eyes are locked on only one target, the monster standing before him. Jinsu stares back with cold amusement. In a split second, he intercepts Tai's lethal strike, catching the boy's face with a single, massive hand. Holding him effortlessly, Jinsu sneers. He has been waiting for this meeting. Young Master Tai. Ledger watches in horror. He didn't even see the movement. How can a human move at such godlike speed? Tai unleashes a flurry of blows to break free, ordering his allies to retreat to the first floor. This is his fight now. Ledger casts one final, worried look behind him. Tai's resolve is ironclad. He alone will take down this legendary monster. Jansu answers with a devastating kick. Tai is sent crashing to the floor, the wind knocked out of him, but his eyes remain focused. He scrambles back to his feet, stance ready. Jansu mocks him, asking if he truly intends to fight a losing battle, or if he has some secret plan. Tai rushes in again, but it is futile. Jansu halts the assault instantly, his grip clamping down on Tai's face once more. He hurls the boy across the room like a ragdoll. If this is the plan, Jansu is unimpressed. The force of the throw sends Tai skidding backward. Jansu reminds him of the harsh reality. In this era of chaos, he stands at the pinnacle of Cheon-u's security forces. No one touches him and lives. His name alone strikes fear into the underworld. He is the sole survivor of the legendary head of Ozong. Challenging him is a death sentence. A memory flashes to a dimly lit bar. Tai sits in silence, seeking wisdom. A mentor's voice cuts through the doubt. He states that you should never say never. As long as Jansu is human, he bleeds, and he can be defeated. The man grins. Those who claim fighting Jansu is suicide are just cowards trying to preserve their own lives. Facts are different from fear. He analyzes the mansion fight. Tai saw Jansu shatter a knife with bare hands. That technique weapon break is legendary. It borders on the impossible. Striking the blade's bevel angle requires monstrous grip and supernatural strength. It is a move that should not exist. The mentor reveals a secret. He created that technique. Back in the present, Tai lunges, his weapon flashing in the light. Jansu's terrifying power comes from his physique and an innate talent for copying any move he witnesses. But that is his limit. He only uses techniques he has seen before. He is predictable. Jansu proves it, snapping Tai's blade with his fingers. He moves to counter, but this time, Tai ducks, evading death by a hair's breadth. Jansu glances back, intrigued by the boy's persistence. Tai crouches, drawing another weapon. The giant asks if he really thinks that will be enough. Flashback to the playground. A man asks a young, battered Tai if he is all right. Pushing the boy on a swing, he notes how worried Tai's mother is about the 6th grade bully. He offers to step in and end it. Tai refuses the help. His pride won't allow it. Instead, he asks the man to come to school at noon just to watch. He needs a witness to tell his mother how he won. In the arena, Tai stands tall, now dual-wielding the gleaming blades. Jansu scoffs. Any steel that comes within his reach will be reduced to scrap metal. Tai charges. He accuses the giant of arrogance for using the same trick twice. Jansu blocks a punch, asking if the previous attacks were just a test. Then he impact. Jansu flinches as a blade digs deep into his shoulder. The giant, dagger in hand, Tai screams the truth. This man is the sworn enemy of his family. Today, he is not a soldier, he is an avenger claiming his blood debt. The bully meets Tai in the yard. A 3rd grader challenging a 6th grader. Mere acceptance of the fight was a humiliation for the older boy. Raged the aggressor. Suddenly, he aimed. That single blow could have ended the fight. But instead, Tai grabs a rock he had prepared and begins to mercilessly overpower the boy. He unleashes this violence to ensure he is never bullied again. He fights so that neither he nor his family will ever have to endure those insults again. Having witnessed the steel slice, Jansu advances again, sneering that he still remembers when the young master was just a child. But Tai perfectly blocks his kick. Jansu scoffs, asking if after 17 years of planning, this is truly all he has to show for it. He continues he is caught off guard by the ambush. He looks back, bewildered, wondering when the traps were set. Lying, the scene flat. Regina, she asks if he plans on lying down during a real death match. Tai gets up, panting, and asks if training like this really gives him a chance against the titans of the world. Regina, she warns him that sitting by the however, he asks her he explained the only Regina scolds him for calling her master. She reminds him that they are family now, and the formalities are unnecessary. She insists he call her sis. Tae-ha, surprised, asks her to stop joking, but she tells him to say the word as she advances with a lethal knife in hand. Instinct, dragging himself out of the river, he gasps and asks if she really meant to kill him. Regina just watches him silently from the riverbank. With a calm demeanor, she points out the fatal flaw in his mindset. He can never dodge her strikes when she wields a toy hammer, yet the instant steel comes into play. His body moves on pure instinct. Her voice, from that moment, she advises him to clench. Meanwhile, a barrage of heavy blows rains down. The attacker's fists are like pile drivers, bruising bone and flesh with every sickening impact. The bald man, the victor turn, the leader, a cracked channels open. She adds a Guangsu exhale. Her ledger freezes, the implication striking him. The young master is fighting Junsu alone. That is a death sentence. The woman she tries to, on one of the monitors, she whispers inside the operator, Heron's eye, Suri quick. Suddenly, the peace lady, she drops a bombshell. The creature that Junsu prepared his ultimate trump card has already been unleashed and is en route. The operator, in a distant ledger, screams at Guangsu, his fury boiling over. The young master fighting Junsu solo defeats the entire purpose of their mission. Guangsu, he murmurs, a warning shout rings out, ambush from the rear. Guangsu blurs into motion, his blade dancing as he neutralizes the attackers in a heartbeat. He strides ledger and old Guangsu. He confirms the command. Suddenly, reinforcements arrive. Guangsu glares at them, demanding to know why they took so long to join the fray. One of the new suddenly ledger spot Vu barks. The guard steps forward, eyes burning with resolve, and declares their undying loyalty to the new master. He adds with absolute conviction, the young master will return as a conqueror. Meanwhile, in the Spartan office on the 36th floor, the atmosphere is heavy. A simple map and a calendar adorn the walls, silent witnesses to history. Tai surveys the room, noting that this president's sanctuary was a forbidden zone where only his predecessor and the enforcer Junsu were ever permitted to tread. He scans the area, a scoff escaping his lips at the disappointing simplicity. The seat of ultimate power amounts to nothing more than a kitchenette and rotting furniture. His eyes drift to a dispatch schedule pinned to the wall. He wonders if this was their way of remembering the mud and blood of their humble beginnings in construction. Sitting at the mahogany desk, a dark realization takes hold. Knowing his father and grandfather both ruled from this chair, he decides that slaughtering them was not a sin, it was a necessity. His companion interrupts his reverie, urging that now that the inspection is done, they must vanish into the shadows immediately. Tai dismisses the fear, even as he acknowledges the lethal danger. The black team has defected to the loyalists, turning the building into a death trap. The companion's voice trembles with urgency, warning him that one man cannot hold back the tide of enemies if they breach the perimeter. Elsewhere, the powerhouse Junsu scoffs at the very idea, questioning how a brat like Tai could possibly ascend to his level. A subordinate reports that Heron has already been crushed and dragged in chains, though he doubts Tai has the strength to make it this far. Back in the silent office, Tai poses the ultimate question. Does his companion believe he has the power to break Junsu? The companion hesitates, doubting a victory is possible, and suggests a strategic retreat to bypass the fight and seize the objective directly. Tai shakes his head. It's impossible. As long as Junsu stands as the guardian of the 11th floor lobby, not even the ghost of his grandfather could slip past. He reaches for a dusty red phone, the weight of legacy in his hand. His grandfather is dead, and the past is ash. Tai grips the receiver, his eyes cold. He asks his companion if he recognizes the device. The man shakes his head, confused by the archaic technology. Tai explains it's a rotary phone, a relic of a bygone era. But this isn't an antique, it's the direct line to the four emperors of the council. The companion watches him with growing unease, finally asking what Tai intends to do now that he wears the crown of the president. Tai leans forward, his voice low. Think about it. My father executed my grandfather to take this seat, and I removed my father. He sets the phone down with a heavy clack, posing a rhetorical question. What has truly changed now that I sit on the throne? He answers himself with a cynical smirk. Nothing. At best. We continue to slice up the country like a pie for the other for council members to devour. The companion's eyes widen. He realizes Tai has no intention of joining the council. He plans to do something far more drastic. Tai lays out the triad of absolute rule, wealth, knowledge, and power. To begin his reign, he requires two specific keys to unlock the kingdom. The first key is Wu Min, the heir of the Osung faction's former commander. The second is Junsu, the man who earned the faction's trust by staring down death itself. Tai declares his endgame. Once he secures the brute force of the Osung faction, the rest of the council will become nothing more than dust beneath his boots. His ambition is terrifyingly simple: merge with Osung, dismantle the council, and rise as the sole, undisputed emperor of the nation. A memory flashes. A young, bloodied Tai stands defiant, a knife trembling in his grip. In the flashback, Junsu declares their blood pact. The companion asks if the plan is to absorb the faction and abolish the very system that created them. She voices her doubt. Why would the faction agree to destroy the council that handed them the reins of power in the first place? Hand hovering over the phone, Tai reveals the harsh truth of the underworld. These wolves follow whoever bears the sharpest fangs. He begins to dial. To lead the pack, you don't ask for permission. You crush the alpha. The companion stares in horror and awe, finally understanding the sheer scale of Tai's madness. Tai muses on why Junsu, a man of the shadows, would train a successor. The memory shifts to a violent duel, where a pillar shatters, bringing the ceiling down around them. The young Tai charges through the dust, weapon raised. He faces the legend, Junsu, ready to kill or be killed. Junsu moves like a phantom, unleashing a devastating combo that overwhelms the boy. Tai crashes to the floor, glaring up at the monster who refuses to fall. In the present, Junsu replays that duel in his mind. He admits that in terms of technique, raw power, and endurance, the young master is hopelessly outmatched. However, a dark smile touches his lips. There's one specific domain where the boy leaves him in the dust. In the memory, young Tai vanishes, exploding forward with godlike acceleration, a move Junsu recognizes as true, supernatural speed. He admits it is an innate gift, a velocity that human eyes cannot track and traditional guards cannot block. Tai's blade screams toward his neck, but Junsu intercepts him mid-air. Even if my eyes can't see you, he growls, hurling the boy over his shoulder. I can feel the intent. He slams Tai into the ground with bone-shattering force, proving that experience trumps raw talent. Junsu stands tall, declaring that the legacy of martial arts is not just speed. It is a history of violence as old as humanity itself. He declares that he has devoured the entire history of human violence, mastering every combat discipline ever forged for conquest and survival. Tao refuses to back down, launching a vicious kick to restart the offensive. Jansu admits internally that despite his vast experience, he cannot secure a dominant lead against the boy. Tao drops low, weaving under a lethal strike. The master glares at Tao, eyes cold as steel. But Tao reacts instantly to a blur of motion that slices the air inches from his face. Tao grins, noting that his body still responds to his will. He coils his muscles to strike, but Jansu intercepts him with a direct, bone-shaking counter. Yet, no matter how many times he is struck, the young challenger advances like a relentless storm. Jansu begins to cycle through his arsenal, never repeating a technique twice to keep his opponent off balance, overwhelming the boy with unpredictable power. The young warrior hits the ground hard and rolls. Jansu reveals the terrifying truth. He has been fighting with his full strength from the very start. He stares, baffled by the fire that still burns in the boy's gaze. Behind Tao, the spectral image of an ancient spear manifests a sign of unyielding will. Tao begins to list the disciplines his opponent has perfected: Aikido, Kung Fu, Judo, and the bone-crushing art of Muay Thai. He continues the litany of violence, praising Jansu's godlike mastery. But then, Tao's voice drops. He possesses something the master does not. The scene shifts to a silhouette leaping across the skyline. Tao reveals that to reach this battlefield, He had to hunt down and defeat every master of those very arts. His dagger slips from his grasp, tumbling through the air. He questions the decades Jian-su spent polishing his techniques in safety. The young man's hand snaps out, snatching the falling weapon with terrifying precision. He claims mere training is nothing compared to the hell of having nothing left to lose. Jian-su realizes with a jolt the dagger didn't slip. It fell exactly where he wanted it to. A cold sweat breaks out as he understands the calculation. Tao threw the weapon into the air as a setup from the very beginning. A memory flashes Jian-su's own voice teaching a student. Never show emotion to a superior enemy. Wait until the blade of danger is at your throat. In the past, the master explains that the moment of death is the moment to strike. All one needs is a fraction of a second. 0.1 seconds. In that blink of time, Tao explodes upward from the ground, shattering Jian-su's absolute defense. The old master is struck dumbfounded. Tao stands tall, declaring that his long, blood-soaked journey has finally led to victory. As the dust settles, memories drag Jian-su back to the Seoul Olympics, a global festival broadcast to the world. On the screen, white balloons painted the sky in celebration. But in Jian-su's hometown, the roar of bulldozers drowned out the anthem of peace. The merciless shovel of an excavator tore through the rubble of what used to be a neighborhood. Under the guise of urban renewal, greedy developers and hired muscle descended upon their homes like vultures. The community fractured. Neighbors who once broke bread together were now at each other's throats, divided into tenants and landlords by the promise of money. Jian-su's father, a man who raised them with nothing but love, was found cold and lifeless, murdered by thugs hired to clear the land. His older sister, Suan, held him as he wept. She wiped his tears, her voice trembling but firm. This is no time to cry. Even from a young age, Suan was a giant among them. She was stronger than anyone, a genius who never ranked below third in her entire school. She was their father's pride and Jian-su's hero, a flower that refused to wilt even in the harshest poverty. When she announced she would quit school to work, Jian-su begged her on his knees. He swore his body was the only asset they needed to spend. He took on the burden, delivering newspapers in the freezing dawn and running food deliveries deep into the night. And every night, returning with aching limbs, he would find Suan studying by candlelight. She marveled at the new world, asking if he knew about computers that sent messages across the globe. She told him the chairman of Cheon-u declared semiconductors were the future. She vowed to become an engineer and change their wretched world. Night after night, she poured her dreams into her diary, promising that one day, she would repay her brother for every drop of sweat. For Jian-su, seeing her back bent over her books was the fuel that kept him moving through the hell of his daily life. Months later, the day her entrance exams ended, Jian-su spent his meager savings on a cake to celebrate their victory. But when he turned, a neighbor rushed toward him, eyes wild with terror. The thugs had set fire to the slums and vanished into the shadows. The woman pointed a shaking finger. The fire had started at his house. The cake hit the ground. Jian-su sprinted into the flames. But he was a young, they told, but fate was the truth and he knew his sister had. But the next day, that very night, to protect the neighbor, resigned to, her voice broke, unfazed. Jiang-su, he claimed it. The woman lifted, that was the spark. She dropped the, for 10 long, this was Ordo Nox, a syndicate of master assassins and ghosts, feared as one of the most dangerous entities on the planet. Within that crucible, he stepped back onto Korean soil with a vow to never leave again. He incinerated his alias and scrubbed his records, becoming a ghost once more. 10 years had passed, but time had not dulled his blade. He returned with a singular, obsession-fueled purpose, to find the answers that had eluded him. He finally Jiang, his sister's voice. He tracked the chairman not to a skyscraper. Inside, Jiang-su recognized. As Tae-ha turned to beg for forgiveness, Jiang-su seized him by the collar. That was when he saw a gruesome burn scar branding the man's back. The memory of a boy apologizing amidst the flames slammed into him. Young Tae-ha, he apologized. Tae-ha explained. Tae-ha, he admitted his Jiang-su, the scene. Tae-ha, Jiang-su, that pen was the. Later, before the thug could even finish his question, Jiang-su moved. A blur of motion, and the man was neutralized instantly. The body hit the floor with a thud, sending shockwaves through the room. The rest of the gang scrambled to their feet, shouting demands to know the identity of this monster. After 10 years of hellish training fueled by pure rage, hitting them felt surprisingly hollow. He challenged the entire group to come at him at once, promising that when he was finished, it would be as if they had never existed at all. Moments later, Jiangsu stood alone amidst the carnage. All his opponents lay broken on the floor, one groaning beside an overturned table. He tilted his head as the door opened. A new figure stepped into the room, claiming the commotion had drawn him in. The newcomer turned to Jiangsu, a dangerous glint in his eyes. He remarked on the rarity of finding a real fighter, squaring up for a battle that was just beginning. Jiangsu watches him, silence hanging heavy in the air like a storm cloud. The head of the Osung faction, Park Seok-ho, demands his name. Unfazed, Jiangsu simply asks if he is the one in charge. A smirk plays on Park's lips as he counters with a question of his own. He wants to know exactly what Jiangsu plans to do if the answer is yes. Without a word, Jiangsu explodes forward, launching a devastating punch. But the boss doesn't flinch, catching the lethal fist with a single hand. Shock ripples through Jiangsu. It is the first time anyone has ever blocked his attack. Staring into his opponent's eyes, he sees a ferocious intensity. Like a wild tiger trapped in a human body, their duel rages for over 40 minutes. A symphony of violence that leaves the subordinates watching in stunned silence. For the first time in his life, Jiangsu stands before a man who possesses such overwhelming power in his fists alone. Park Seok-ho remarks that the fight wasn't bad, admitting it actually got his blood pumping again. Lying defeated on the floor, Jiangsu accepts his loss and tells the boss to finish it. But before dealing the final blow, Park says he wants to hear the reason behind this desperate attack. The boss insists on knowing the story, his presence demanding obedience. Exhausted and broken, Jiangsu finally gives in and reveals everything. The Cheon-u Group, his sworn enemy, no longer exists because most of the smaller syndicates have already been swallowed whole by the Osung faction. When Jiangsu claims they are all part of the same rot regardless of the name, the boss bursts into manic laughter. Park then declares that titles and names are meaningless. The only thing that truly matters in this world is having the absolute power to force real change. He demands to know where the politicians were while the innocent suffered and vanished, or while the president tried to drag the country back into a military dictatorship. It was their strength, and theirs alone, that stopped the tyranny. He challenges anyone who has a problem with their methods to step forward. Park's voice thunders so loudly that Jiangsu feels his eardrums might burst. Yet he cannot tear his eyes away. That day, the man decides to spare him, even though his subordinates protest, calling it a grave mistake to let an assassin live. Park simply states that he found the answers he was looking for, and since the decision belongs to the king, everyone else needs to shut their mouths. Jiangsu stares at his own trembling hand, his worldview shattered. After carrying out his final vendetta, he contemplates his path for days before returning to Park Seok-ho and offering his life as a bodyguard. Park is surprised, admitting he is quite curious about this turn of events. Jiangsu looks him in the eye and says he wants to witness exactly how Park intends to build the Cheon-u Empire by his side. Thus, history would remember Park Seok-ho as a man of formidable character. He was stubborn, possessing an unyielding will of steel, but he always returned the loyalty of those who devoted their lives to him. As the company expanded into a titan of industry, a devoted faction calling themselves the Loyalists formed around him. Meanwhile, the shadows grew darker within his own family as his sons began to turn on each other. Consumed by poisonous jealousy, years flew by and Cheon-u became a leading tech conglomerate, just as Jiangsu's sister had once predicted. However, something within Park Seok-ho had changed. The fire of determination had dimmed. He not only turned a blind eye to the corruption rotting his subordinates, but also completely stopped looking toward the future. And the moment the tiger faltered, those nursing old grudges stepped out of the shadows to seize their opportunity. One of his sons announces with a chilling smile that the board has contacted them, inviting them to join the coup. Park reacts with blazing fury, confronting his own flesh and blood. He roars that the moment corporations meddle in national politics, They are destined to collapse. The memory of his sister, lost in the tragic reconstruction incident of the Insung district, likely still haunts his every waking moment. In secret, Jiang-soo visited the hospital Park frequented, and the truth hit him like a lightning bolt. The chairman was dying of a terminal illness. Only then did the puzzle pieces click into place. He understood why Park had ignored the spreading corruption. He refused to purge the ranks or create enemies within his own house, all to ensure a stable transition for the next successor. Sitting beneath an old tree, Park laments the financial crisis, admitting they might have to sell half the company. Jiang-soo approaches, responding with formal reverence when the chairman calls his name. With a weary smile, Park asks if he is disappointed, saying it is a shame that this crumbling empire is all he managed to build of Cheon-u. Jiang-soo immediately counters, asking why he would speak such untruths. He declares that if this were all there was to the man, he would have abandoned him years ago. Park replies that he is right, because if he gave up over a few corrupt politicians now, he would never be able to face his sister in the afterlife. He declares that while he may have lost money, he has not lost faith in his people, promising to rebuild Cheon-u from the ashes. True to his word, Park Seok-ho survives the crisis, transforming Cheon-u into the nation's undisputed largest conglomerate. But even a legend is powerless against the flow of time. Park's third son, Soo-hyuk, was eventually chosen as the next chairman. Park believes Soo-hyuk was the only son who resembled his father in spirit and skill, and his own son, Tae-ha, also showed signs of true brilliance. Their philosophy remained simple. They had stopped a tyrant with their strength, and they dared anyone who had a problem with it to challenge them. Unfortunately, Park's decision proved hasty, as Soo-hyuk had no way of controlling the beast that was Cheon-u as it began to rot from the inside. The other son then approaches Jiang-soo, a snake whispering in the grass, and invites him to join the board of directors. He claimed Jiang-soo he reveals a crucial detail. The invitation originated from the powerful Osung faction, and their boss seemed to recognize him. The scene dissolves, shifting to the serenity of a sun-drenched garden. Soo-hyuk approaches Jiang-soo, sensing the tension in the air. He asks quietly if a problem has arisen. Jiang-soo delivers understanding but even if he was the truth was undeniable. No one could lead the company with the charisma that Seok-ho possessed. His son, that weakness Suddenly, Jiang-soo launches a devastating kick. The impact is like a cannonball, hurling the young man violently against the wall. The blow lands hard. Tae-ha groans under the heavy impact. Jiang-soo, speed was Jiang-soo determined. Jiang-soo, he reveals the strength. He feels it is time to crush his family's sworn enemy with his own hands. Tae-ha lunges forward. Jiang-soo watches him come, a smirk tugging at his lips. The scene, he asks Chang, but Chang's bolt from the he suggests. He replies, back in the present, Jiang-soo accepts his fate. He will be defeated soon. He launches one final, precise kick. Tae-ha, in the past, Chang updates Jiang-soo. Tae-ha is alive and has become a lethal agent. He proposes a dark scheme. Use the boy to destroy his father and frame him for the carnage. And one on a Jiang-soo back Tae-ha, he with a burning. Now, he achieved a child, inheriting Seok-ho's brilliance, has walked the same thorny path. With their journey ending, the legacy of Cheon-u is finally absolute. The battle reaches in his the tragic, a memory, if he knew, his own weakness is the sin. But if he was blindsided, then the fault lies in his own complacency. In the boardroom, Tae-ha raises a single object to fountain pen. He asks the silent room if they recognize it. Whoever inherits the chairman's pen rules the empire. Even if the he issued. Jiang-soo is finished. His body crumples to the floor, a puppet with its strings cut. In the center of the grand hall, his lifeless eyes stare eternally into the void. Tae-ha mutters that he curses. Gu makes the call seeing Tae-ha, bleeding and broken, senses a presence. He tries to force his battered body to move, but a looming shadow swallows him whole. He looks up. Wi bellows the heart already. He drops the bombshell to the crowd. Jun-woo has fallen, and the one who took him down was Tae-ha. Gu and Wi freeze at the news. Guangsu stands in disbelief. The screams of Gu's men fill the air. a chorus of despair over their master's defeat. Back in the Ledger pauses. He smooths Ledger loom. In the lobby, Suri rallies the survivors near the getaway van. Move. We need to go now. She glances at he grim, but Goose slams the van door shut, locking Wi inside. You need to live to serve the young master. He spins around to face the oncoming horde, screaming for them to drive. The driver floors it, shouting for them to run. As they speed away, a memory washes over Wi. He remembers the day he was welcomed in, all thanks to Jiangsu's recommendation. As they careen through the streets, panic sets in. One man trembles. We won't make it. They'll catch us in minutes. Suddenly, Suri, he introduced. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit office, Azra grips her phone. I understand. She turns to the shadowy figure behind the desk. It's confirmed, boss. Tae-ha. Meanwhile, the camera pans to the Tae-ha, a man in the suit suggests that he stares. Yapil retorts. He then drops a golden offer, the position of chief professor of surgery at Gashian University, a seat that will soon be vacant for the taking. The doctor dismisses him instantly, telling him to get out. He claims saving lives is merely a hobby, not a career. Yapil simply adjusts his glasses, bids him take care, and walks out the door without looking back. Outside, Soo-hyuk and his anxious men surround the exit, demanding to know the status of their patient. Yapil informs them that fortune is on their side, the condition isn't critical, and Tae-ha simply needs time to recover. He says his quick goodbyes, urging them to go inside as he prepares to depart. But before he steps away, Yapil leaves a final instruction. Tell Tae-ha to contact him for a serious discussion the moment he awakens. Soo-hyuk and his crew watch the sedan fade down the street. One subordinate whispers, asking if Tae-ha has truly woken up. But Soo-hyuk offers no answer, only silence. Inside the moving car, Yapil organizes the chaos in his mind. He recalls Tae-ha mentioning the upcoming board meeting for the Cheon-u Group. The realization hits him hard. Tae-ha is the rightful heir of Cheon-u and the direct grandson of the legendary late chairman, Seok-jin. Yapil knew the kid was an extraordinary fighter from overseas, but he never guessed he was royalty of the underworld. That remarkable eloquence and those terrifying negotiation skills, they were clearly carved into his very bloodline. Now, Tae-ha commands not only the loyalists, but also the man who crushed both Pitcher and Gwang-ho. And there is one more devastating variable to consider. He defeated Jiangsu right in the heart of Cheon-u's territory. Tae-ha possesses not just god-tier martial arts, but a brilliant, tactical mind. If he decides to challenge the current regime for the presidency, he won't just win, he will take absolutely everything. A dangerous thought crosses Yapil's mind. Should they eliminate him now? He grabs his phone, identifies himself as the chief, and demands an emergency meeting with the executives immediately. Back at the restaurant, Soo-hyuk turns to his men with urgency in his eyes. He orders them to evacuate the location as soon as possible. One of the men looks confused, pointing to the young master's battered state, asking what Soo-hyuk could possibly mean. He argues that the Osung faction runs 30 hospitals in Seoul alone, questioning why they brought him to a traditional restaurant in the first place. Suddenly, a fist connects with his jaw. Soo-hyuk lowers his hand, stating grimly that they are in a gray area, tools to be discarded the moment they are deemed useless. The assaulted man rubs his face, asking what the point is the plan to just drag an unconscious Tae-ha around the city? Soo-hyuk reveals that Vice President Yang will contact them soon and orders them to wait until the signal comes. He then raises a small flash drive, his eyes gleaming with a secret. He asks if they know what this weapon is. It holds security footage from the control room on Cheon-u's first basement level. This tiny device contains every recording from the last month, spanning from the 38th floor all the way down to the 6th basement level. His companion still looks skeptical, asking what one can possibly achieve with just some video files. Soo-hyuk smirks, revealing his true nature. He is a data broker, a merchant of secrets, and this raw information can be traded for anything in the world. Elsewhere, a subway train rattles along the tracks. Inside a crowded car, the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. Gwang-ho, vice president of Cheon-u, tells a man to stand up straight. reminding him they are in public. The man just laughs in his face, mocking Gwang Ho and asking if his old legs are already failing him. Min Shang, vice president of the Dubang Association, continues to taunt him. He asks if this is Gwang Ho's first time on the subway, noting he usually sees him in luxury limousines. Gwang Ho ignores the insults, telling him to speak his mind and leave, as the next stop is Syndrome. Then his pride breaks. He begs for help, insisting that the young master must take over as chairman for the sake of the organization. Min Shang scoffs loudly, questioning if this pathetic man is really the Gwang Ho he knows, or if age has finally rotted his brain. He adds a cruel condition: if he came to beg, he should at least compensate pitcher and batter first. Gwang Ho desperately offers 300 million won for each, plus $1 billion to cover the commission fee. But Min Shang simply tells him to get lost, dismissively stating he's going to take a nap instead. Gwang Ho plays his final card. He offers to help remove his own chairman, reminding Min Shang that he still covets that position for himself. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. Gwang Ho's men and other passengers in the car drop their disguises, revealing themselves ready for a brutal confrontation. Gwang Ho asks Min Shang not to say such scary things. Min Shang lowers his glasses, his eyes cold, and questions what makes them so suddenly brave. The scene shifts to a desolate rural area in North Gyeongsang province. Under the cover of night, a young woman with glasses prepares for violence, suspended in the air by razor-sharp wires. A board member of the Yin clan wonders who would have the audacity to hunt her down. Perched on the roof like a demon, Baekhyun, the clan's chief, declares that her dear former disciple has returned to pay the price for her past mistakes. The suspended woman snaps at her captors, her patience wearing thin. Stop stalling and open the damn door. The scene unfolds within the Manhwa, the legendary foundational training ground of the Yang clan. A calm, velvety voice cuts through the tension, offering a cup of steaming tea, brewed from Takujian leaves harvested in early spring in Hodong. It possesses the finest flavor under the heavens. Baek Xiang smiles sharply, holding the cup out. I assure you, after one sip, you will never be able to stomach that sewer water they call coffee. On the streets again. But Suri Yun, the former head of Yaburi Sang, isn't here for a tea ceremony. There's no time, she hisses. I must speak with the clan leader immediately. Haran commanded it. The Yang clan chief, Baek Jong, scoffs in disbelief. You expect me to believe a third-rank officer like Haran was defeated? Imprisoned by the likes of Chien-su? Impossible. She taps her chin thoughtfully, her eyes gleaming with mockery. Perhaps Haran didn't bring her sword because of the board meeting? Baek Jong continues her taunt. We all know that young woman can barely breathe, let alone live, without her blade by her side. Suri shoots back, her gaze cold. How would you know? You only ever watch her through the grainy feed of a control room camera. Baek Jong sets down her cup with a sharp asterisk clink asterisk, the pleasantries vanishing. Helping a man named Tae-ha, that mission is foolishness. I dismiss it entirely. A young officer steps forward, his aura flaring with arrogance. I will hear the message. I alone will judge whether it is worthy of the clan leader's ears. Speak, woman. Suri cuts him off instantly. I was clear. I speak personally with the chief. The officer's face darkens. I am not in the mood for games. Speak now, before I force the words from your throat. He sneers, crossing his arms. If you were truly under Haran's orders, you would know protocol requires you to report to me first. His voice rises to a shout. You are lying. Stop this stalling and speak at once. Suri Yun stares at him, silence stretching like a taut wire. Her mind flashes back to that desperate moment. Must I really speak to the clan leader? She had asked. The answer was a simple, terrifying yes. Haran's voice echoes in her memory. This matter is of the utmost importance. Speak to no one below the third rank on the main estate. Ask for Baek Jong. Haran had insisted, eyes burning with urgency. The clan leader will come if it is you calling. But back in the present, her attempt to pressure the officer isn't working as planned. Suri sighs, realizing she has no choice. She drops the code phrase that changes everything. The shadows of Seobil have fallen. The officer freezes. Did Haran really say those words? Suri nods grimly. How could I possibly mistake a message so short, direct, and devastating? The realization hits him like a physical blow. A coup. The officer straightens up. I will inform the clan leader. He waves a hand dismissively. Go, you may rest. Suri remains rooted to the spot, watching him closely. A chill runs down her spine as she realizes the truth. He never intended to let her leave. A cruel smile spreads across his face. Did you really believe you had left this house forever? For over 1,000 years, only Yang clan blood could enter the sanctuary, he reveals. His voice dripping with malice. I waited. I tolerated your youthful rebellion only because it amused me to keep a defector alive. The killing intent vanishes, replaced by an icy command. Come inside. The formal induction address begins tomorrow. Suri straightens her posture, her eyes defiant. Fine, but I have conditions. The officer blinks, caught off guard. You are kidding, right? Permission to visit my father twice a week, she demands. And when the time comes, you will help Tae-ha at least once. She pauses for emphasis. That request is not for a Yang clan member, but for my master. He decides to ignore the sheer absurdity of her demands for now. Why are you so insistent on helping him? Tae-ha saved my father back in my hometown, Suri replies, her voice steady. I may be a defector, but I am not shameless enough to leave a life debt unpaid. He shakes his head. You are unbearably smug. You aren't even a 5th-rank officer yet. Why would I use my power to help with your personal matters? Suri just offers a mysterious, confident smile. Don't be so difficult. We both know you'll help me anyway. He frowns. And why would I do that? She steps closer, locking eyes with him. Because you need me. She tilts her head. Is that not true? Silence hangs heavy in the air. Finally, he stands up. Come with me. Outside, the full moon dominates the night sky, casting long shadows. As they walk through the moonlit courtyard, his tone softens slightly. It's been a while. In the distance, the sounds of combat echo as two clan members spar with heavy staves. Chief Baek-jong, 2 young disciples greet him with enthusiastic bows. Baek-jong approaches, hands clasped behind his back. Training this late? Are you all right? He dismisses them with a wave. Get back to your cultivation. They obey promptly, returning to their duel. Suri watches the interaction in silence. Baek-jong begins his lecture. Our scouts scour the lands for children with exceptional potential. They are brought here to the Yang clan. They are raised in the Manhwa. If their combat skills are superior, they join the Western Division as warriors. But if their intellect prevails, he continues, they start as 5th-rank officers in the Eastern Division, serving in administration or diplomacy. He turns to her. Only those who possess the holy trinity of beauty, strength, and intellect can truly join the clan. That is why training begins from childhood. However, he says, his eyes narrowing on her, you joined this house at 17. The clan leader herself came to get you personally. That hadn't happened in 50 years. For someone like her to bring you here, you were a special case. Suddenly, violence erupts in the courtyard. Asterisk crack. Asterisk one of the young trainees is struck by a devastating blow. The impact sends him flying backward, crashing into the dirt. The other clan members freeze in horror, screaming out, Chief, Sir, the clan. Byang narrowed her. She ordered 8 knots. Byang taunted. Days later, the atmosphere shifted completely. The scene returned to the familiar chaos of the Bowman Gukbap restaurant. Soo-hyuk proud Tae-ha on the television, back at Tae-ha on screen, invoking the he vowed that his voice be explained. He needed Tae-ha the order without the backing of the power players who controlled the country. Seizing the chairmanship would mean nothing. The vice Tae-ha, he explained, but then he wanted to. He knew that suddenly the joined Tae-ha. He spoke of it already under the Tae-ha Mansukan. In an instant, shadows shifted. Several men emerged, surrounding them completely. Mansu's Jin Tae-ha through the glass. Cigar smoke swirled. He realized someone was already inside. He quietly asked Bi to wait, deciding to have a brief discussion with these thugs. Tae-ha Mansu. In a flash, one of Tae-ha's enforcers clamps down on the target, locking him in place. The warning is cold and absolute. One wrong move, and he pays with his life. Mansu's, if you choose death with a massive, wise the realization, Tae-ha, the master, there was no need for the aura around the old man shifts as he introduces himself properly. He is the absolute ruler of the Aseong faction. An attendant, as he sinks into the plush sofa, Kim Gil offers a smooth apology. The ambush outside. Just a necessary show to make this meeting appear coincidental to prying eyes. Cut the nonsense. Tae-ha interrupts, his voice, Park D.